Chapter 635. Long Crane chuckled as he finished speaking. He thought that his words were very appropriate. But he saw that Mei Xuan's face was getting more and more unsightly. In fact, it looked like it was going to turn into a thunderstorm at any time. Long Crane was quick to react, and immediately shut his mouth. He was secretly perturbed. Did I not express myself clearly enough? Bear Mountain, Earth Cracker. You too. You too. Ha ha ha. Mei Xuan was so angry that she burst into laughter. Her expression was very dangerous as she leaned forward and said in a gloomy voice, "So, I'm already married. How come I didn't know about this? Ah, this, that. Big Bear and Earth Cracker's hairy faces twisted in a split second. Their faces turned red, and they became tongue-tied. In fact, they couldn't speak a word. You're still talking about this and that? Who did I get married to? When did I get married? Mei Xuan's eyes flashed as she stepped forward. Suddenly, she roared, Bear Mountain. Earth Cracker. Raise your heads and look at me. Bear Mountain trembled. His face was so bitter that it seemed as if juice was about to drip out of it. He didn't know where to put his hands and feet. Long Crane was stunned for a moment. Then, he jumped up and screamed in a strange voice, Fourth Brother Bear. You bastard, the news you brought back is fake. Boss isn't married. And you. Suddenly a loud shout was heard, you have a lot of guts. Do you want to die? This, that, it's going to happen sooner or later. Big Bear secretly breathed through his nose and retorted, rolling his eyelids. You bastard. You urged me to do such a thing to tarnish boss's reputation. You've made a big joke out of yourself. You're still trying to reason with me? You still dare to refute? Long Crane was furious. Bear Mountain was the one who brought back the news. But, he was the one who mobilized and arranged everything in the Tian Fa forest. How could he not panic? You're still shouting over there. Shut up. Mei Xuan fiercely turned her head and looked at Long Crane, one more word and I'll break your neck. Long Crane trembled, and quickly shut his mouth. He didn't dare to say a word. Big sister, this is what brother-in-law wants us to do. Big Bear finally couldn't bear this huge pressure, and said while crying, Big brother. I am loyal to you, as bright as the sun and the moon. Oh ho ho ho. Mei Xuan was so angry that the veins on her forehead were bulging. She took a deep breath and asked, was it June Moxie? Hearing this, everyone had a strange look on their faces. Didn't you deny it? Why did you say June Moxie the moment I mentioned brother-in-law? Yes. Bear Mountain heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly said, Big sister, we're doing this for your own good. Brother-in-law is a good person, Mei Xuan's chest rose and fell violently. Her face was ashen as she closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Suddenly, she opened her eyes and roared like thunder, I'm going to kill all of you bastards. All of you, die. If I don't make all of you happy, you won't know why the flowers are so red. Venerable Mei, who was able to say such words, was obviously completely enraged. Inexplicably, Mei Xuan moved like lightning and attacked, bang bang bang. In the depths of the Tian Fa forest, dust filled the sky. A group of beast kings were beaten up by Mei Xuan with her fists. Although the Beast King's strength had improved a lot and had climbed to the superior supreme level, they were nothing in front of their big sister. Not to mention that their strength was inferior, even if they could resist, they would not dare to resist. Long Crane and the other Beast Kings had spent a lot of effort to create this vast open space. Not a single bit of it was wasted. It became a great place for them to be abused. One by one, strong bodies were thrown up like rubber balls and then fell down. Then, they were hit and sent flying again. Screams were heard one after another, each more miserable and louder than the last. Although they were screaming miserably and seemed to be in dire straits, all the beast kings felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted from their shoulders. Boss didn't go too hard on them. It wasn't as heavy as they had imagined. At least, it wasn't as ruthless as before. This time, although they looked furious, they only suffered some physical pain. Yes, they would only suffer some physical pain. There would definitely not be any serious internal injuries. Big Brother's actions could be said to be very appropriate. The Beast Kings indeed looked like they had been beaten to the extreme, but in reality, they were not seriously injured. All the Beast Kings had thick skin and flesh, so what was the big deal about this little bit of beating? It was almost not even physical pain. Physical pain would still cause some injuries, and it would only hurt for a while. It was not even as serious as when they were sparring and accidentally getting injured. However, he still had to save face for the sake of his boss. So, the Beast Kings cried even more miserably. Each and every one of them cried out in pain. That sound was as if they were suffering from the cruelest torture. Ah, Big Bear cried out in cadence. He winked as he was kicked up into the air. He waved his hands and feet as he flew in the air. Then, he screamed, "Aya, big sister, you're so strong. My bones are going to break." Earthcracker imitated him and screamed. His face was full of hemorrhoids. He covered his buttocks and screamed, "My buttocks have split into 2 pieces." Everyone looked at him in disdain. This idiot doesn't even know how to brag. Whose buttocks don't have 2 pieces? Oh, Careless Rock held his head as he was kicked away. He screamed, "Big sister is so powerful. My legs are going to break." Everyone looked at him in disdain. Why are you holding your head and screaming when your legs are going to break? You don't even know how to act. Ah, the Monkey King did a series of somersaults. He shouted, "Big sister's kick is so ruthless. It kicked me so hard that I somersaulted dozens of times, so painful." So painful, all the Beast Kings roared in unison. One roar caused the mountains to collapse and the earth to crack. Another roar caused the sun and moon to lose their luster. "Big sister, please spare us." They begged for mercy together. Their voices were so loud that it didn't seem like they were begging for mercy. Instead, it seemed like they were joking. Mei Shuiyan was undoubtedly very angry when she saw this scene. However, she also felt a little shy and happy at the same time. This was the feeling of a young girl. However, it wasn't convenient for her to show this kind of embarrassment. So, she could only find an excuse to vent her anger. She could also use this as a pretext to cover up her feelings. So, she naturally stopped when she attacked. However, she didn't expect that these guys were so thick-skinned and thick-skinned. Moreover, they were so dumb that they couldn't think straight. Since they could see that she wasn't really angry, wouldn't it be fine if they just put on a show? Who would have thought that this bunch of idiots didn't even know how to put on a show? Each of them was worse than the other. In the end, they even cried out in pain happily. This wasn't a fight anymore. It was a fight to see who had the loudest voice. Looking at them again, their faces were originally filled with fear and restraint. But now, they were all grinning from ear to ear and winking happily. They were all sticking out their tongues and making funny faces. Were they getting beaten up or celebrating the new year? This time, Mei Shuiyan really couldn't hold on any longer. Her face turned red. She was really angry out of humiliation. Thus, the strength of her hands and legs increased to a considerable level. Ah! Ah! Oh my God! Help! Spare me! A series of blood-curdling screams resounded once again. This time, it was different from before. Previously, everyone could hear that the screams sounded miserable and louder, but in reality, there was no pain at all. However, this time, it was the complete opposite. The 6 Beast Kings were gritting their teeth and hissing as they sucked in cold air. It was obvious that the pain was coming from deep within their bones. They didn't even have the intention to scream anymore. All they could do was gasp. It was really too painful. Their eyes were filled with pain and confusion. What's going on? Why did the situation suddenly change? Could it be that everyone's passionate performance just now wasn't good enough? It must be that Hujio's acting was too lame, or that Monkey Chi's acting was too pretentious. I'm the only one who acted well. It's all because of those idiots. They're too unlucky. Heavy punches continuously landed on their faces. In just a short while, most of the members of the number 1 group, which represented the highest strength in the Tian Fa forest, were all bruised and swollen. Long Crane's long mouth was almost broken. Bear Mountain, the Bear King, was directly turned into a Panda King. Tiger King was actually beaten into his original form. He was a big white tiger without a single strand of hair. Then, he was grabbed by the tail and thrown into the air. Then, he rolled his eyes and fainted. The tiger seemed to have turned into a sick cat. The Monkey King was beaten until he rolled in the air like a rubber ball. This time, it wasn't spontaneous. Instead, it was due to the inertia of the external force. His brain was ringing endlessly. Just as the Lion King stood up in a daze, he was immediately hit in the face by hundreds of heavy punches. His face was blooming like a peach blossom blossoming like a blooming peach blossom, and stars swirling in the sky. He swayed and fell down, directly turning into a pig-head king. The Eagle King's hooked nose was almost beaten into a Lion King's nose. The Snake King, who was watching the battle from the side, was originally laughing happily. But now, his face was pale and his whole body was trembling. The cheering and clapping just now had long since been thrown out of the window. Later on, their eyes were staring straight at the scene. Oh my god. So boss is really angry. Finally, Mei Xuan let out a long sigh and landed gracefully on the ground. She looked coldly at the Beast Kings lying on the ground and snorted. How is it? Did you guys enjoy yourselves? Did you guys enjoy yourselves this time? Why aren't you shouting anymore? Where did your enthusiasm go? Yes. Yes. The Panda King, Bear Mountain, wanted to cry but had no tears. He nodded his head like a chicken pecking at rice. You didn't break your bones? Say it. Do you still dare to mess around? Mei Xuan's face flushed with an almost imperceptible blush. We won't dare, we won't dare. The 6 Beast Kings nodded their heads in unison. The sickly Cat King, Earthcracker, quickly crawled out of the pit and transformed back into his human form. Don't worry, big sister. I'll order them to leave immediately. Long Crane shook his dizzy head, and turned around in a daze. Then, he shouted loudly, get the hell out of here, all of you. This bullshit palace is not going to be built anymore. All of you, get out. Get out. Bullshit palace? Not going to be built anymore. Mei Xuan raised her eyes and looked at Long Crane with a red face. What do you mean? The gap between the monthly votes is getting bigger and bigger. Brothers, sisters, are you going to admit defeat like this? It's 15:10 in the afternoon. I'm going to erupt non-stop from now on. Until midnight. I'm the first in the monthly votes. I'm going to erupt until midnight. I'm going to lose the monthly votes. I'm going to erupt until midnight. I don't know how much more I can erupt. Brothers and sisters, please give me strength. Today, I'm going to open the prelude to the Silver Blizzard City. The excitement is about to begin. I'm begging for monthly votes. Chapter 636. Ah. Huh. What? Long Crane was at a complete loss. He sat down on the ground and shook his head vigorously. Then, he quickly dug his ears. Did I get beaten silly by boss? Am I hearing things now? Didn't you beat us up because you were angry? Why are you saying this now? What are you talking about? What I mean is, since it's already like this, there's no way to restore it to its original state. Then, we'll just make the best use of it and continue to build. Mei Xuan knew that she was being unreasonable. She blushed and said fiercely, "What? Do you still dare to refuse?" "What? Boss is blushing. We're not dreaming, are we?" "Willing, willing, very willing." The 6 Beast Kings' brains short-circuited at the same time. They looked dazed and nodded repeatedly. Then let's leave it at that." Mei Shuiyan's expression was one of anger, one of embarrassment and one of joy. She rolled her eyes and suddenly stomped her feet heavily. "You gluttons, come with me. I have something to ask you." A wisp of fragrance floated away with a whoosh. Venerable Mei could feel his face burning. It was too embarrassing. The 6 Beast Kings looked at each other, puzzled. What was going on? But they all had a common understanding in their hearts: today's beating was for nothing. And it was an injustice. That was 3 levels of injustice. Qian Sun's Serpent Queen's face was ashen as she said, "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and go." "What are you waiting for? Do you want to get beaten up?" "Woo." She suddenly covered her face and sobbed. She didn't get beaten up, why is she crying? What kind of explanation is this? The 6 Beast Kings were shocked. What the fuck? What happened today was too unimaginable. A lesson for no reason turned into a beating. Boss actually blushed. What's more, the people who got beaten up didn't even cry, but those who didn't get beaten started to cry. What kind of explanation was this? Mei Shuiyan sat at the head of the table. The 7 Beast Kings were divided into 2 rows. They took deep breaths and touched their wounds from time to time. The youngest is still in seclusion. Mei Shuiyan frowned. Yes. The 6 Beast Kings replied succinctly. First, tell me how many Xian beasts are above level 9. I want to hear the detailed numbers. Mei Shuiyan snorted. The bear tribe has 1,764 Xian beasts above level 9. Among them, there are 824 Xian beasts above level 9. There are 640 Xian level 9 Xian beasts above level 9. There are 300 peak level 9 beasts. There are a total of 2,169 cranes above level 9. Among them, 1,184 are at level 9, 740 are at level 9, and the number of peak level cranes is slightly smaller. There are less than 250 of them. The crane tribe has 2,169 Xian beasts above level 9. Among them, there are 1,184 Xian level 9 beasts. There are 7 peak level 9 beasts. Long Crane said. The Eagle King has 4,800 Xian beasts above level 9. Among them, there are 3,006 Xian level 9 beasts. There are 1,050 peak level 9 beasts. The Eagle King was a little ashamed. His tribe had the most Xian beasts, but the number of peak level 9 beasts was the least. The Monkey tribe has 2,500 Xian beasts above level 9. Among them, there are 1,400 Xian level 9 beasts. There are 600 Xian level 9 beasts. The Monkey King Ho Chi looked a little bitter. Among all the Xian beasts, his tribe was the most difficult to manage. Some time ago, he was injured and fell back a level. Many of his subordinates rebelled and were ready to make trouble. This had dealt a serious blow to his reputation. If he had not used the medicine that Jun Moxie had given him to increase his strength and reach the level of Great Master level, he would have been in trouble. I will personally take care of the monkey tribe later. Mei Shuiyan Lenglang looked at him and said, "You bastard. You can't even manage your subordinates. What kind of king are you?" "Boss, I." Ho Chi was a little dejected and wronged. Ever since he was injured, he felt that it was not easy to get his cultivation. He was always kind to his challengers. He was even more afraid of accidentally killing them. Especially after his strength had increased, he had been more lenient. But his subordinates didn't know what was good for them. They were getting more and more rampant. You will never achieve great things if you are soft-hearted. Mei Shuyan snorted and looked at the Lion King. The lion tribe has 3,600 Xian level 9 beasts. Among them, there are 1,750 Xian level 9 beasts. The Lion King grinned and said, there were 3,605 of them. But 5 blind ones challenged me some time ago. I tore them apart one by one. Now, they are even more obedient than newborn cubs. The Lion King smiled proudly. Good job. In troubled times, severe punishment is needed. In power, severe punishment is needed. If you want to be the leader, you must have the courage to pay the price. Mei Shuyan's face was gloomy. She nodded slowly. The snake tribe has 4,300 Xian level 9 beasts. 3,000 Xian level 9 beasts. 700 Xian level 9 beasts. 600 Xian level 9 beasts. The Qian Sun Serpent Queen calculated in her heart and said. Not bad. Mei Shuyan smiled approvingly. The last one is the leopard tribe. Ever since the leopard tribe lost their former leopard king, a new leopard king hasn't been born. During this time, they don't accept each other. They have fought several times. More than 10 of them have died. Bear Mountain King murmured as he peeped at Mei Shuyan's face. After the death of the leopard king, Bear King was temporarily in charge of the leopard tribe. However, those fellows were not honest. Moreover, Bear King was a lazy person. So, it was not a surprise that there was chaos in the tribe. Give me a specific number. I don't want to hear that. Mei Shuyan's eyes turned cold. I will let the leopard tribe have a good time in the afternoon. Hearing this, the beast kings showed a gloating expression. The leopard tribe has 3,900 Xian level 9 beasts. 2,100 Xian level 9 beasts. 1,300 Xian level 9 beasts. 500 Xian level 9 beasts. Bear Mountain King said. Well, what about the rock tribe? How many of them are there after the second brother left? Mei Shuyan's eyes darkened as she asked. The rock tribe has 1,100 Xian level 9 beasts. 500 Xian level 9 beasts. 370 Xian level 9 beasts. 230 Xian level 9 beasts. Long Crane sighed. And the youngest eagle tribe has 4,600 Xian level 9 beasts. 2,900 Xian level 9 beasts. 2,200 Xian level 9 beasts. 500 Xian level 9 beasts. The eagle tribe has been developing quite well during this period of time. You, third brother Crane, have contributed a lot in this. But the rock tribe. Alright, we'll talk about it in the afternoon. Mei Shuyan frowned deeply and said slowly. Right now, the most important thing is to create a few king beasts. Create a few king beasts. Hearing this, the beast kings could not help but feel a little dizzy. Could the king of the Xian beasts also be created? Although there were already enough shocks today, this latest one was still a little too shocking. Wasn't this a little too fantastical? This afternoon, gather all the Xian beasts that are about to reach the shape-shifting stage in the entire Tian Fa. Mei Shuyan calmly issued an order. Although her tone was light, it contained a majestic aura that was as strict as a mountain. Boss, did brother-in-law give you a lot of good pills? Bear Mountain King's eyes lit up as he asked excitedly. As he said this, saliva actually flowed out of the corner of his mouth. With that pair of panda eyes on his face, it was as comical as it could get. And he did give a lot. This time, the strength of our Tian Fa is finally going to take a huge leap. There will no longer be the 3 holy beasts and 1 ferocious beasts. There will only be 1 ferocious 3 holy beasts. Mei Shuyan also revealed a faint smile. There was a look of longing in her eyes. Third brother, fourth brother, how many of the Xian beasts that are close to shape-shifting? Long Crane and Bear Mountain nervously exchanged information for a while. Then, Long Crane said, there are about 500 that have reached the shape-shifting stage. Fourth brother and I have done a detailed count, and the exact number is about 489. Boss, you also know that Xian beasts shape-shifting is one of the most difficult hurdles for us Xian beasts. Every generation of Xian beasts that are close to shape-shifting has this number, and sometimes even more. But, there have never been more than 20 Xian beasts that have succeeded in shape-shifting. Most of them just stay stuck there until they die of old age. Long Crane sighed and said, Fourth brother and the others had brought back some elixirs, and they were very effective. Everyone had leveled up by at least one level. The Lion King and the Monkey King had leveled up by 2 levels. Their strength had soared. But, it's already a blessing to have such a number of elixirs. We can't have hundreds of them at once. So, we should choose the strongest ones and give them to them to ensure that they can shape-shift smoothly. Fourth Crane spoke slowly. He was secretly looking at Mei Shuiyan's complexion from the corner of his eyes. His words weren't optimistic, but the hope in his voice was evident. Mei Shuiyan's face sank. Her brows were slightly wrinkled. It seemed as if she was worried about something. Long Crane's heart sank. His words were getting more and more meaningless. I understand what you're saying. There aren't many Xian beasts at the peak of 9th level among the different clans. But, there are still thousands of them. So, where are we going to find so many elixirs? Mei Shuiyan said in a serious tone. Everyone sighed in unison. So, we can only strengthen those who can shapeshift first to ensure that they can safely break through this hurdle. As for the future, we'll talk about it later. Mei Shuiyan took a deep breath. Ah. What? Everyone was dumbfounded. Long Crane's mouth opened so wide that it almost dislocated. He stammered, BB boss. What did you just say? 500 Xian beasts at the peak of 9th level, at the same time. Is there a problem? Mei Shuiyan looked at him strangely, don't tell me you don't want to. If you don't want to, the Crane clan can choose not to participate in this breakthrough. I didn't, you. Oh. Long Crane suddenly jumped up, and let out a roar unique to the Tiger King. The other Beast Kings almost thought that the old crane had transformed into a tiger. Chapter 637. But the Beast Kings immediately understood what Mei Shuiyan meant, and they couldn't help but cheer. Although Tian Fa's strength will experience a huge leap after this, reaching a height that has never been seen before, the favor we owe Jun Amo Xia is too great, so great that it's hard for us to repay him. Mei Shuiyan sighed lightly. She suddenly felt an inexplicable warmth in her heart when she said this name. What are you talking about, elder sister? We and our brother-in-law are a family. You and your husband don't owe each other anything. Kaka, Earthcracker smiled mischievously and said, we are brothers-in-law. So, we obviously have to take advantage of our brother-in-law's glory. Isn't that right, everyone? That's right, brother-in-law doesn't eat brother-in-law's food and drink brother-in-law's food. How can we call ourselves brother-in-law's brother-in-law? Although we are a little larger in number. The Beast Kings roared with laughter. All of you, shut up. Are you itching for a beating again? Mei Shuiyan was embarrassed and angry at the same time. You bunch of useless things. The Beast Kings froze, and kept quiet out of fear. Fourth brother Xiong, you said, he said that he would rather come to Tian Fa Forest to live. Mei Shuiyan pouted and sulked for a long time. No one knew what she was thinking, but she suddenly opened her mouth and asked Bear Mountain. Did he really say that? Elder sister, what are you talking about? There's no head or tail, which him? Bear Mountain scratched his head and asked, as if he really didn't know. Fourth brother Bear. Mei Shuiyan shouted. Come here, I'll help you loosen your bones. I guarantee that you'll feel comfortable, and you'll understand once you're comfortable. Oh, there's no need, there's no need to trouble yourself. Aren't you talking about brother-in-law? I understand, I understand. Bear Mountain seemed to have come to a sudden realization and said, yes, didn't brother-in-law say that at that time? Hee, this point, old Tiger 9 can testify. Both of us are honest people and won't talk big. Earthcracker hastily nodded, yes, I can testify. Big sister, brother-in-law is sincere to you. The two of us are so honest, when have we ever boasted? All the Beast Kings looked at them in disdain. You two think you're being honest? You don't know how to boast? Too shameless. The redness on Mei Shuyan's face deepened. She heaved a sigh of relief, and her eyes flickered for a while. Then, she said, let's not talk about that. Jun Moxie is about to send his troops to Blizzard's Silver City. This move, firstly, was to intimidate the world. Secondly, it was for revenge. There were countless mysteries in this. The three Holy Lands would also intervene in this matter. Since our Tian Fa has received so much grace from him, this time, we must do our best to help him achieve this goal. Don't worry, big sister. We will definitely do our best to support brother-in-law's actions, and we will not hesitate to go through fire and water. At that time, our entire Tian Fa forest will be mobilized, and we will directly trample the snowy mountains into plains. Fuck their granny. All the Beast Kings patted their chests and promised solemnly. All of them thumped their chests so loudly that it shook the heavens. Everyone began to call him brother-in-law, but Mei Shuyan did not stop them, nor did she object. It was as if she had quietly accepted the word brother-in-law, so during this period of time, we must raise everyone's strength as much as possible. Mei Shuyan's eyes turned as cold as ice. From this afternoon onwards, the entire Tian Fa forest will be on lockdown. In 7 days, 489 peak 9th level Xian beasts must complete their transformation. After that, prepare 6,000 flying type Xian beasts, and 5,000 ground type Xian beasts. Starting from the peak of the king rank, even if the three Holy Lands really turn out in full force, my Tian Fa will fight them head-on. We will kill them with an unprecedented blood red. Mei Shuyan's killing intent soared to the sky, and she issued a strict order. Yes. Crane King, Bear King, and the rest bowed in unison, their faces solemn, and their expressions fervent. After 10,000 years, Tian Fa had finally risen again today. Mei Shuyan stood on top of an ancient tree, looking into the distance. Her expression was calm, but there was a hint of longing in the depths of her eyes. It had only been a few days since they parted, but why was she already so longing for him? She really missed those days in the past, fighting side by side, burning passion in the igloo, whispering sweet nothings. In any case, everything related to him appeared in front of her eyes, just standing there in a daze. Jun Moxie's handsome face suddenly appeared in Mei Shuyan's heart, and she also remembered the words Jun Moxie said before she left, spring flowers bloom, one sword to break Blizzard's Silver City. Spring flowers bloom, one sword to break Blizzard's Silver City. This was the deadline he set. There were still about 2 months left. That enemy had set the date on the 2nd of February. Time was tight. So Mei Shuyan wanted to build the strongest Xian beast army in this period of time, to coordinate with her lover's magnificent feat of flattening Blizzard's Silver City. And in this period of time, Jun Moxie had also released this news in Tianxiang City. Once this shocking news was made known to the world, the whole world would be shaken and shocked. Everyone could clearly see that the Jun family was going to take revenge on Blizzard's Silver City when spring flowers bloom. This rare war was unavoidable. 10 years of loyal souls cannot rest in peace. 3,000 days and nights of blood red. The Azure Dragon raises its head. The 2nd of February, thousands of troops trample Blizzard's Silver City. It was said that Jun Moxie suddenly wrote this poem after one night of drinking. Then, he smashed a wine cup, and his body reeked of alcohol and murderous intent as he roared, 2nd of February, break Blizzard's Silver City. Destroy that traitor Shao, and avenge our great enmity. Although others did not understand why Jun Moxie set the date on the 2nd of February, Jun Moxie himself knew in his heart. However, Jun Moxie knew it in his heart. Moreover, he had sufficient reason to do so. The 2nd of February, the dragon raises its head. This was a Chinese proverb. On the 2nd of February next year, I will represent the dragon god of China, and raise my head to look down on the world. I, Jun Moxie, hereby announce to the world, anyone who has good relations with the Shao family of Blizzard's Silver City, get out of my way, or I will kill them all. Kill them all. Kill them all. Those who obey me will prosper, and those who oppose me will perish. Who in the world dares to defy me? Jun Moxie's poem and the 3 sentences of his roar had spread throughout the entire Xian continent in just a few short days with the speed and volume of a thunderclap. It was close to the end of the year, but the continent was filled with huge waves. This year was destined to not be a peaceful one. At least, many people would not be able to eat on this New Year's Eve, and were deeply worried. And on the 29th of December, Jun Moxie unexpectedly received a letter from Li Yuran. There were only a few short sentences on it. I'm leaving. I'm going to the Great Golden City. Tomorrow is the New Year's Eve, but I don't want to spend it in Tianxiang City. With you around, I'm really depressed. Maybe one day, I will come back. I will fight with you again. This time, I lost before the fight even started. But next time, I will fight no matter what. Also, be careful of the blood sword hall changing clothes. The signature was, the leisurely departed Li Yuran. Jun Moxie slowly held the note in his hand, and smiled faintly, letting the note curl up into a ball in his hand. He sighed softly. Li Yuran had actually chosen to leave home on the 29th of December. The day before the New Year's Eve, he had left home thousands of miles away. Even a prodigal son like Jun Moxie had never experienced such a thing. Therefore, it was difficult for him to understand Li Yuran's current mood. However, Jun Moxie felt an inexplicable sense of sadness. Presumably, Li Yuran must have felt a trace of sadness in his heart, no matter how ruthless and cold-blooded he was. He was born into a wealthy family, and had never had to worry about food or clothing. But, he didn't necessarily enjoy many good things in his life. On the contrary, he had seen nothing but cruelty, blood, and the destruction of humanity since he was a child. He had seen nothing but intrigue and power struggles. He may not be better off than me. This pampered young master of a wealthy family has finally chosen to leave. Moreover, he has chosen to leave at such a time of family reunion. Jun Moxie understood that Li Yuran had used his decisive action to show his determination to stay away from power struggles. At the same time, he had also vaguely revealed a piece of information to him: be careful of the Blood Sword Hall's change of clothes. Yes, the Blood Sword Hall that had changed its clothes was naturally no longer the Blood Sword Hall. It could be an ordinary citizen, a well-off businessman, a dignified military officer, or even a serving official. Of course, it could also be an imperial bodyguard. But no matter what, this subtle piece of information could be considered as Jun Moxie owing Li Yuran a favor. Although Jun Moxie was no longer afraid of any sudden attacks from any forces, Li Yuran's information had pointed him in a direction that Jun Moxie had previously neglected. Perhaps, Li Yuran's purpose in doing this was to make a final effort for his family. In fact, it could even be said that he was fighting for his family's future. He had quietly made Jun Moxie owe him a favor twice. Then, the leader of the Li family's younger generation had quietly left. Now, the Li family had become a toothless, decadent tiger. There was no longer any threat to them. Therefore, Li Yuran had clearly laid out this fact, hoping that Jun Moxie would give the Li family a way out. This was Li Yuran's true intention. Although he was cold-blooded, although he only cared about profit and would do anything to achieve his goals, there was still a trace of warmth in his heart, a trace of kinship. Jun Moxie let out a long sigh and shook his head. He did not say anything. With a wave of his hand, the piece of paper turned into fragments and floated away with the wind. With a whoosh, the fragments disappeared without a trace. Sounds of laughter could be heard coming from the hall of the inner courtyard. All the members of the Jun family had gathered together. Grandpa Jun was greatly comforted. Dongfang Wenxin, Jun Moxie, Jun Wui, and Guan Qing Han were sitting around. Beside them, Dugu Xiaoyi was also there, refusing to go back no matter what. The little girl's thoughts were very simple. I have to watch over it. What if I don't get my share? Therefore, the little girl had made up her mind. Tomorrow, she would go home to celebrate the New Year's Eve. Once it was past midnight, which was the first day of the new year, she would come back to watch over it. This time, the cooked duck must not be allowed to fly away no matter what. It's already midnight. Everyone, please search through your box of monthly votes and see if there are any leftovers. Or, you can click on the monthly votes page. Who knows, you might get a surprise. Wow. I still have a waha. Chapter 638. However, she was not the only one who had latched onto the Jun family. The true master of the Dugu family, Dugu Zongheng, had also latched onto the Jun family. It was fine if Dugu Xiaoyi did not leave, but he, the dignified head of the Dugu family, did not return home to take charge of the overall situation, but instead stayed at the Jun family's residence. However, Dugu Zongheng argued, I won't go home even if you beat me to death. All the younger ones at home come home during the new year, and the 3 sons and 7 grandsons are like a litter of pigs. Other than being angry, there is nothing else to do at home. Dugu Zongheng is enough. This matter was immediately confirmed. When Dugu Zongheng came to invite Dugu Zongheng home, his nose was bruised and his face was swollen. Dugu Zongheng scolded him and beat him with a stick. It turned out that Dugu Zongheng's 2 younger brothers had returned home. Dugu Zongheng, who had suffered at the hands of Dugu Zongheng for a year, naturally wanted to complain and show off his authority as the eldest brother. Then, they discussed who would stay behind for the next year. At first, the 2 of them listened to their eldest brother's instructions with their heads bowed, but in the end, no one was willing to stay at home. Dugu Zongheng was naturally unhappy. Damn it, you guys are hiding far away, happy to be idle, but what about me? Do I have to endure it alone? Do I have to be abused as the eldest brother? So, he began to sternly reprimand them, trying to persuade them with emotion and reason. However, the 2 brothers were unmoved and could only shake their heads. Helpless, Dugu Zongheng flew into a rage out of humiliation, and simply used force to threaten them. The 2 brothers did not want to be outdone. This was related to their lives for the next year. The 2 little ones had a tacit understanding and joined hands to beat up the older one. When the 3 brothers fought, the 7 younger ones outside, although they usually had a good relationship, naturally had to help their respective fathers. Therefore, they also began to argue for what was right. In the end, they also used their fists to do the talking. The 7 brothers directly fought into a ball. Only when the old mistress came out and gave them a good beating with her dragon-headed walking stick did they finally settle down. However, the old mistress was so tired that she was panting. More importantly, she was so angry that she sent someone to invite the old master back to take charge. The family looked left and right, looking as if they had just come out of a battlefield. The only one who could come out was the eldest brother, Dugu Zongheng. Besides, the Jun family was Dugu Zongheng's in-laws, so who else could come if not him? But when Dugu Zongheng came, Dugu Zongheng immediately became furious. Look at the Jun family, and then look at my own son, who came with a bloody nose and a swollen face on the 29th day of the new year. Isn't this clearly undermining me? Without saying a word, he picked up his cane, and from the looks of it, it seemed like he was going to break Dugu Zongheng's leg. Dugu Zongheng's old wounds had not yet healed, and now he had a new one. He stood in the house of his future son-in-law, and before he could even catch his breath, he had already fled. Even after he had left for a long time, Dugu Zongheng was still angry, and was muttering to himself, family's misfortune, unfilial son, and so on. Dugu Xiaoyi comforted him softly, and simply leaned on her grandfather, acting like a spoiled child to amuse him. After a long time, the old man's expression finally became better. Mu Shuatong was also present, and was chatting with Jun Wui with a smile on his face. Mu Shuatong and Han Yen Meng looked as if a heavy burden had been lifted from their shoulders ever since Jun Moxie had made that world-shaking announcement. They were still somewhat concerned about the Blizzard's Silver City, but they also knew that nothing would happen to the Blizzard's Silver City from the moment Jun Moxie had made that announcement. After all, even if the Xiao family was stupid, they wouldn't rashly start an internal strife at such a critical juncture, which would greatly weaken the Blizzard's Silver City's strength. In fact, the Xiao family might even think of using the Han family as cannon fodder to exhaust the Jun family's strength as much as possible. However, when Han Yen Meng entered the hall, Jun Moxie, who had been hiding from her the entire time, took the initiative to greet her. His attitude was exceptionally warm. "Ah. Isn't this Miss Han? I haven't seen you for a few days, and you've become more and more beautiful. TSK, I wonder when Miss Han will tie my little wife to my bed? I've been looking forward to it every day. I've been looking forward to it from the stars and the moon, and I've been looking forward to it ever since. So, you should hurry up and make it happen." Han Yen Meng's face turned red. She was so ashamed that she almost wanted to run away. There was no need to mention the regret in little Princess Han's heart. She really shouldn't have bet with this guy that day. This guy is too treacherous. He had already dug a trap for me to jump into. But, I was so stupid that I thought that I had succeeded. And, I had even jumped into the trap with a triumphant attitude. Then, I found out that I had unknowingly lost myself to him, and had become his little wife. And, she had even taken an oath. And, the most terrible thing was that she had taken an oath with the highest honor of the Blizzard's Silver City. And, she even had to tie herself up and send her to his bed. This is really embarrassing. Little Princess Han Yen Meng was at a loss. Her lips were trembling, her head was lowered, and her face was red. She didn't dare to look at anyone, and didn't have the slightest trace of her usual arrogance and craftiness. As her future brother-in-law, Jun Wui felt a little distressed, and hurriedly called out to her. The little girl sat down awkwardly. She lowered her head and sat for a while. After making sure that there was nothing wrong, she mustered up the courage to raise her head. Her pretty face was as red as a monkey's butt. But, when she saw that Jun Moxie wasn't paying attention, she fiercely glared at Jun Moxie. Jun Moxie turned around and immediately shouted, "How can you be like this? The bet is already over, but you don't want to fulfill it. You're willing to bet, but you don't want to admit defeat. And, you still dare to glare at me. Quick, where's my little wife? I want her tonight. Hurry up and tie her up for me. Humph, don't forget your oath." I'm not glaring at you." The little girl's eyes were filled with tears, and she hurriedly tried to explain. "I don't care. In any case, I want my little wife tonight. You have to do it anyway. You promised me at the beginning." Jun Moxie smiled evilly. He looked at her with a proud expression, and said, "Ah, it's so comfortable. I can consummate my marriage with my little wife tonight. It's really fascinating to think about it. No wonder everyone says, it doesn't matter if you're rich or not. Marry a wife and celebrate the new year. This is the truth. Consummating your marriage with your little wife on the eve of the New Year's Eve is a perfect example of double happiness." Han Yen Meng's eyes turned red, and she burst into tears. Her small mouth opened wide, and she cried in a heartbroken manner. Jun Wui and Mu Shuetong hastily tried to console her. But, they knew the whole story. So, they rebuked Jun Moxie. Jun Dashao spread out his hands with an innocent look on his face. What little wife? Dugu Xiaoyi suddenly became vigilant. She looked at Jun Moxie with her big bright eyes. brother Mosia, where did you get this little wife? How come I don't know who she is? I want to go and see." The little girl's face was full of murderous intent. June Moxie's scalp went numb. He had been trying to take advantage of her just now. How could he have forgotten about the situation in front of him? Then, he turned around, and saw that Guan Qinghan was also listening attentively. His mother, Dong Fang Wen Xian, was also very concerned and had come over. "Heavens, I was only saying that." Young Master Jun felt as if he had lifted a rock and smashed it on his own feet. "What's going on?" Dong Fang Wen Xian sat down, and asked his son with great interest, "Which family's girl is it? When did you get a little wife?" Actually, it's like this." June Moxie saw that Han Yen Meng was in Mu Shuetong's arms, and didn't dare to raise her head. So, he lowered his voice and explained. "It seems that these three women won't let me off if I don't explain things clearly today, ha." Dugu Xiaoyi giggled and trembled. "You're saying that she pestered you to make a bet. Then, she dug a pit for herself. She lost herself to you, and became your little wife? Isn't this too creative?" June Moxie's face turned bitter. He helplessly spread out his hands. "That's the whole process. In fact, I felt very helpless. Who doesn't know that you're a cunning schemer?" Guan Qinghan snorted. Her tone was quite unkind. "Maybe you saw that the little girl was pretty, and your heart was already moved. So, you used this as an excuse to set up a trap. I'm innocent. I'm innocent. I'm such a pure, upright, and noble gentleman. How could I do such a thing?" June Moxie's words made the entire hall burst into laughter. If this kid can be described as pure, upright, and noble gentleman, then everyone in the world is a saint, so, that's how it is. Dong Fang Wen Xian beamed with joy. "You're my son. You're really good at picking up girls. Ha! But, little Meng is too pitiful. She carelessly lost herself." Dugu Xiaoyi came back to her senses. She pouted and said, "She tied herself to the bed. I thought that I was stupid enough. But, I didn't expect that this little girl is even more stupid than me. Today, I've learned something new." Everyone looked at her with a look that said, "You finally know that you're stupid." Then, the hall roared with laughter. "But, this girl is the same age as Han Yen Meng. How dare she call Han Yen Meng a little girl?" Amidst the laughter, Dong Fang Wen Xian simply pulled Han Yen Meng into her arms and comforted her softly. Then, she suddenly said, "Actually, little Meng, when you send your concubine over, just tie her up lightly. Don't tie her up too hard, or it will hurt. She's my daughter-in-law. I'll feel sorry for her. Do you hear me? Don't be so careless." Han Yen Meng opened her eyes wide. She didn't expect June Moxie's mother to see this matter as well. She couldn't help but feel unhappy. She twisted her buttocks in Dong Fang Wen Xian's arms and said, "I don't care. Sister-in-law, you're also bullying me. You have to stand up for me. Don't let your son bully the elders anymore. Why are you still calling me sister-in-law?" Dong Fang Wen Xian frowned and pretended to be annoyed. "You've already become my son's concubine. You can't call me sister-in-law anymore. Don't act like an elder anymore." Han Yen Meng became even more embarrassed. She rubbed her head in Dong Fang Wen Xian's arms and refused to raise her head. June Moxie was also dumbfounded. "What's wrong? Why does mom seem to take it seriously? I'm going to faint. How can it be like this?" At this moment, Dugu Xiaoyi also hugged Dong Fang Wen Xian's shoulders and announced loudly, "Auntie, I'm your legitimate daughter-in-law. I've been waiting for so many years. You can't break us up. And Sister Qinghan, she's the real deal. What's done is done. The others have to wait." Everyone was sweating profusely. This little girl's valiance really made people gasp in amazement. Chapter 639. Dong Fang Wen Xian laughed heartily and pulled Guan Qinghan into his arms. With a face full of smiles, he said, "It's all the same, all the same. Ha ha ha, this time, I can only wait to hold my grandson, ha ha." In Jun Moxie's small courtyard, Yi Guhan sat alone on a stone bench, humming an unknown sad song. His expression was deep and lonely, but his eyes were burning with passion as he looked at the stone table in front of him. There were words written on it. At the moment of family reunion, Yi Guhan sat alone, using a knife in his left hand to carve a name on the stone table in front of him. Xiu xiu, xiu xiu, xiu xiu. The fragrance of wine filled the air from all directions. Yi Guhan smiled miserably, threw away the knife, grabbed the jar of wine at his feet, raised it, and poured it into his mouth. His Adam's apple moved up and down as he swallowed, but his eyes were still fixed on the name on the stone table. Finally, the wine was finished, and he was drunk. Yi Guhan gently pressed his cheek against the stone table. He pressed his cheek against the ice-cold handwriting, and silently roared, "Xiu xiu." A stream of tears flowed out silently, dripping onto the stone table, right where the name, "Xiu xiu," was carved, slowly condensing into a piece of ice. In comparison, although the Jun family was the one who made the announcement, they were also the one who completely stirred up the world. It could be said that they were the initiators. A single announcement from Jun Moxie had instantly thrown the world into chaos, making the already complicated world even more chaotic. But the Jun family, the initiator of all this, was probably the most relaxed one. At least, the other families were in a state of unease. In the imperial palace, His Majesty, the Emperor, was facing a table of extremely luxurious food and wine. His brows were tightly knitted, and he did not even have the mood to lift his chopsticks to try the food. The rise of the Jun family was unstoppable. In fact, it was progressing at a rapid pace. Back in Tianxiang City, they were just an ordinary aristocratic family. So what if they had the reputation of one family, 4 military gods, 3 generations and 6 marshals? They were just officials. It was just an empty title. But now, they actually dared to say in front of the entire world, "Those who follow me will prosper, and those who oppose me will perish." This was undoubtedly the most naked provocation to the imperial family. If he didn't have enough confidence, how would he dare to make such an unbridled threat to the entire world? The Emperor of Tianxiang didn't want to admit it, but he had no choice but to admit that the Jun family wasn't something that the Emperor could control anymore. In fact, the current imperial power had to rely on the Jun family. Last time, the second prince had been scared to the point of incontinence at the gates of Tianxiang City. Jun Moxie hadn't done anything to hide it, and had directly led the 2 troublemakers back to the Jun family. Afterwards, he hadn't even given an explanation, as if nothing had happened. His Royal Highness was injured by a guest of the Jun family, but the Jun family didn't even give an explanation. It was as if such a thing had never happened before, and it went against the rules of the emperor and his subjects. But the imperial family actually just let it go and let it go, just like that. In fact, even if the imperial family didn't want to let it go, and wanted to pursue the matter, what could they do? Even if they forcefully pursued the matter, the result would only be worse. Who in the world didn't know that the Jun family's 3rd young master, Jun Moxie, wasn't a reasonable person? He dared to kill a living person in broad daylight. Who didn't know that the Jun family's strength had reached an unimaginable level? Even the great masters, and those above the great master level, had to come and go alive. Today, the Jun family was second to none in the world. Even if they faced the formidable strength of the 3 holy lands, they could still force them to return in defeat, let alone others. So what if it was the imperial power? The imperial power, which was supreme in the eyes of ordinary people, was no longer in the eyes of the Jun family. Thinking of this, the emperor closed his eyes sadly, raised his neck, and gulped down a full cup of wine, choking and coughing. This originally sweet wine was so bitter when it entered his mouth, and it was difficult to swallow. Originally, any country would be happy and fortunate to have a super family like the Jun family emerge in it. Because, with such a colossus overseeing it, they could intimidate everyone for at least a few hundred years. Although such a family wouldn't directly participate in invasions, they wouldn't allow enemies to invade their country. Such a family was a powerful protective talisman for a country. But now, for the Emperor of Tianxiang, this protective talisman had become a fatal poison. It was the most lethal and life-threatening poison. Jun Wu Hui Ah. Isn't this all for you? A face appeared in front of the Emperor's eyes, dignified with wisdom, and calm yet sharp eyes. There was generosity and benevolence in his decisiveness to kill, and there was indifference and confidence in his disdain. The god of war, Jun Wu Hui. The general in white. Do I regret it? Do I regret it? If I didn't make that decision back then, wouldn't the Jun family be my greatest help now? His Majesty shook his head bitterly. I don't regret it, yes, I don't regret it. I would still choose to do the same thing if I could do it all over again. Because I am the Emperor. I will never allow such a thing to happen. Since the Emperor has no regrets, I also have no regrets. It's just that fate makes fools of people. Winner takes all, this is nothing more than that. His Majesty swallowed that mouthful of wine with difficulty, as if he had drunk all the flavors of life. I don't regret it. It's useless to regret it. Jun Moxie, I want to see how long you can endure. Thinking of Jun Moxie, His Majesty the Emperor thought of the last effort he had put in. That day, after the banquet where Jun Wui had adopted Guan Qinghan as his daughter, the Emperor had a long talk with Jun Zhantian. Recalling that long talk, the Emperor's lips curled into a bitter smile. Brother Jun, you and I haven't had such a good drink for a few years. It seems that your tolerance for alcohol hasn't decreased at all, in fact, it's even better than before. His Majesty still used the title they used when they were conquering the world together, but it seemed like he hadn't used it for a long time. Your Majesty is too kind, this old man is already old and no longer the same as before, haha. When Jun Zhantian spoke, His Majesty could clearly hear it. Jun Zhantian called himself old man, but not old subject. This clearly showed the choice in Jun Zhantian's heart. Brother Jun, what are you talking about? You are indeed old but vigorous. His Majesty pretended not to hear it, and spoke of the purpose of this banquet under the cover of his drunkenness. Brother Jun, half a year ago, you mentioned to me about the marriage of 2 children. Today, I will ask again shamelessly, is it possible for Raimu and Moxie? Regarding the marriage, this old man can't make the decision for Moxie now. Let's not talk about the distant matters, let's talk about Qinghan. In order to save that bastard, she made such a big sacrifice. How can our Jun family let her down? Also, there is the apple of the Dugu family's eye, Sai, it has caused a huge uproar. How could Moxie be a match for Princess Ling Meng, a woman of heaven's pride? Grandpa Jun politely declined. Although his tone was tactful, there was no leeway for him to change his mind. Miss Qinghan has sacrificed a lot for Moxie. She is indeed a woman of great wisdom and courage. Naturally, she is a good match for Moxie. She should be the first choice for the first wife. Naturally, I will not separate them. I believe that Raimu will not mind. If Moxie is willing to treat her as a co-wife. His Majesty hadn't finished his probing speech when he was interrupted by Grandpa Jun. How can a dignified princess be a co-wife? How is this any different from being a concubine? Where would the face of the royal family go? Grandpa Jun spoke in a righteous and resolute manner. He even said that he was thinking for the sake of the royal family. Speaking of which, it was really ironic. Every dog has its day. Only half a year had passed. Half a year ago, Jun Zhantian had put down his pride and asked the emperor to marry off his daughter in order to preserve the last of the Jun family's bloodline. At that time, he had been mercilessly rejected. At that time, even he could imagine how embarrassed and desperate Jun Zhantian must have been. But just half a year later, it was his turn to taste this kind of embarrassment and despair. The subject of the conversation was still Jun Moxie and Princess Raimu. It was still about their marriage. But this time, Jun Zhantian was just like himself. He refused without any room for negotiation. The two people who were talking did not change. The content did not change either. The only difference was that the content was changed one by one. The original rejecter had become the one being rejected. The original requester had become the one being requested. Sure enough, every dog has its day. But, how could it take 10 years? In just half a year, the world had been turned upside down. That night, His Majesty the Emperor had lost all hope. From Jun Zhantian's expression, he already knew the result. The only thing he didn't know was how Jun Moxie would deal with him. But that was no longer important. It didn't matter anymore. In the palace, in another direction. The Empress and Princess Raimu sat facing each other without saying a word. New Year's Eve was supposed to be a night of reunion, but the Emperor and the Empress rejected the proposal at the same time. Both chambers were cold and cheerless, and there was a deathly stillness. During this period of time, Princess Ling Meng had become thinner day by day. Her eyes had become bigger, but her originally healthy and rosy face had now become dry and bloodless. She had become so thin that she looked like she was out of shape. Meng, don't torture yourself too much. There is no reason for the younger generation to bear the burden of the previous generation's affairs. The Empress's voice was particularly heavy. She patiently comforted her daughter. Relax, I will take care of everything for you. Princess Raimu shook her head slowly. Her eyes were listless as she looked at the flickering candlelight on the table. 2 drops of tears flowed down slowly. Mother. I don't want to bear this burden. I just feel bad. Bad? Why would you feel bad? Murong Xiao looked at her daughter in a daze. She was extremely surprised. Princess Raimu's face was sad. She murmured, Sin, this is the sin of my previous life. How did things turn out like this? How did it turn out like this? How did it turn out like this? Her usually beautiful eyes were devoid of any spirit, only endless confusion and sadness. Chapter 640. As soon as the words came out, even Murong Xiao herself felt that it was impossible. Her daughter had always thought highly of herself and looked down on all the men in the world, including Li Yuran. Although Jun Moxie's status was extraordinary and his strength was even more amazing, these amazing changes all happened in a very short period of time. Before that, Jun Moxie was just a complete debauchee. How could he enter her daughter's eyes? Moreover, the number of times they met each other could be counted on one hand. At most, they met occasionally when her daughter visited Yiguhan. Other than that, they had no other contact, so it was really difficult to link them together. Princess Raimu opened her mouth and lowered her head, no. Although she denied it, it was particularly difficult for her to say it. Before the words left her mouth, a drop of tear fell on the back of her hand. That day, Uncle Yi was seriously injured and dying. Only Jun Moxie could save him. I begged in vain, so I had to make a blood oath. As long as he could keep Uncle Yi alive, then I am willing to marry him, to be his wife or concubine. There's such a thing. Although the Empress also knew that it was the Jun family who saved Yiguhan who was seriously injured that day, she did not know the whole story. Especially since this was the first time she heard of this secret, she could not help but open her eyes in surprise. Princess Ling Meng's eyes were filled with tears. She looked at her mother with an indescribable bitterness. Mother, my heart is very bitter. It's very bitter. I only knew that Jun Mo Xia was the one who saved me. He was also the one who protected me. The mysterious knife-throwing master. It turned out that Jun Moxie's strength was already outstanding. At that time, he was already at the peak of Tianxian. The Empress was so shocked that she was speechless. Since that day, I have been paying attention to every move of Jun Moxie. I did not let go of any information. I even took out all his previous bad behavior and analyzed them one by one. Mother, now I realize that I am really not as good as Xiao Yi. Xiao Yi can see the good in him, but I can't. I can't see it at all. Too many things were isolated from the inner court of the palace. No matter what they wanted to know, they could only rely on other people's mouths to tell them, and the truth was forever shrouded in a thick fog. We can't see through loyalty, treachery, virtue, and stupidity at all. The so-called good and bad character is also groundless and hard to judge. Princess Ling Meng smiled self-deprecatingly. Mother, I remember when I was young, you once told me that the imperial palace is the most glorious place in a country, but it is also the darkest place. It is also the most depressing place. At that time, you would often cry. I don't know why, but at that time, I felt that as the emperor's daughter, I had a noble status, far above ordinary people. How could I feel depressed? But now I finally understand that the palace is not just what you said, it is also the most hypocritical and filthy place in the world. The people who live in this palace are basically a bunch of fools. No matter how smart a person is, once they enter this place, they will eventually become a fool. So much so that they can't even control their own future. They live their whole lives in hypocrisy and lies, unable to see the truth at all. Mother, this is such a sad thing. The Empress stared blankly at the flickering candlelight and sighed deeply. The candlelight flickered in her eyes like a once-beating dream. As her daughter spoke, she once again thought of the past that she thought she had long forgotten, that lofty and unyielding young man and that pure and beautiful young girl, the sunshine of spring, the fragrance of autumn flowers, the mossy path that they once walked side by side, and the warm embrace that they once snuggled up to. Unknowingly, her eyes were filled with tears. After a long time, she muttered in a mocking and disdainful tone, "Royal family? Glory? Dark, hypocritical, filthy, hee-hee." Murong Xiu's voice was abnormally distant and deep, as if she was talking in a dream. Mother? Are you all right? Princess Ling Meng was startled by her mother's sudden outburst. She could not help but raise her teary eyes in panic and look at her mother in confusion. I'm fine, I'm fine. I'm just feeling a little emotional. The Empress smiled slightly and used the palest and weakest words to comfort her daughter. She was a bit distracted and after a moment, she lowered her head slightly. Using the shadow of the lamp, her tears slid down. She said quietly, "Continue." Muhu is listening. Yes, Mother. Take this Jun Moxie for example. Everyone only saw the surface of his debauchee behavior. They all said that this person is hopeless and that the Jun family is finished. If Grandpa Jun dies today, the Jun family will be destroyed the next day. One person said it, 2 people said it, and 100 people said it. Jun Moxie's reputation as a debauchee was built up. Now that I think about it, weren't those people who said it all gloating over the misfortune of the Jun family and adding insult to injury? If Jun Moxie had really shown his talent since he was young, then he would have been long gone from this world. Princess Raimu said sarcastically, "At least my father couldn't tolerate it." He couldn't tolerate the rise of another Jun Wuhui, right? Even more so, an existence even sharper than Jun Wuhui. And he couldn't tolerate such a person coming to seek revenge. Using a tone that was beyond her age, she said in a low voice, "I finally know why Jun Mo was willing to sacrifice his own feathers. Now that I know what happened in the past, I can imagine how much suffering Jun Mo had to endure all these years. I'm about the same age as him, but the difference between our experiences is like the difference between the heavens and the earth. In the past, I thought that I was extremely intelligent and talented. But, I was nothing compared to Jun Moxie. The difference was like heaven and earth. In fact, there was no point in comparing them. My childish thinking in the past was not only ridiculous, but it was also very sad. Now, his wings are fully fledged, and he has risen in one fell swoop. He doesn't need to hide anymore. In just a short span of half a year, the Jun family has become a super aristocratic family that no one can shake. The bad habits from before have also disappeared. Jun Moxie's name is like a spring thunder, and it shakes the world. The sad thing is that we only understand it now. And the world has only understood it now. But it's already too late. The expression on Princess Raimu's face became more and more sad. But there was also some pride on her face. In fact, it's not surprising. Because he doesn't need to endure it anymore. And he doesn't need to pretend anymore. Jun Moxie is a man, a real man. Mother, I even feel that Jun Moxie is not inferior to his father, Jun Wu Hui. What's there to say? You've already fallen in love with him. Otherwise, why would you speak in such a tone? The Empress sighed deeply, but, how did you fall in love with Jun Moxie? Haven't you always looked down on him? Is it because of a vow? Isn't that too childish? Marrying him and falling in love with him are two completely different things. This is a dead knot that can't be untied. There's absolutely no hope. What do you want me to say? It's because I hate him that it's easy to change, right? Princess Raimu's expression was somewhat perplexed. Mother, do you know this kind of feeling? What you thought was just a small character crawling on the soles of your feet turned out to be a giant dragon that soared above the 9 heavens and ruled over all living things on earth. When a person that you don't even want to look at turns out to be someone you've misunderstood and wronged. What kind of feeling is this? She smiled sadly and said, ever since I knew that I've misjudged him, I've been collecting all the information about him. I've tried to infer his true intentions and motives from everything he's done in the past and everything he said to me. Then, I've considered the Jun family's situation and the general in White's enmity at that time. I've realized that everything he's done has a deeper meaning. Every word he said has been carefully thought out to suit the environment and atmosphere at that time. Mother, this is wisdom. Jun Mo Xia is fully deserving of being a real man. A real man. It's easy for a person to drag out an ignoble existence, but it's difficult to endure humiliation. It's just a quick move to die for justice, but it's too difficult to silently endure and even cooperate with other people's contempt. He has peerless talents, but he treats himself like a clown for the sake of his family and hatred. It's too difficult. At least, I can't do it. I can't bear so many supercilious looks, so Jun Moxie is even more noble. So, as I investigated, I slowly fell into it bit by bit. Just like that, I fell into it. Empress Mother. A man like this is the man of every woman's dreams. How could I be an exception? It's not about the blood oath, I've already treated him as the only man I've acknowledged in this life. Princess Raimu said faintly, but when she raised her head stubbornly, her face was filled with tears. I know that there's no hope, not even a little bit. Because of this, I said it out loud. Ever since father mentioned it to me, I knew that there was no possibility between me and him. How can he accept me? But I can't accept it. I really can't accept it. I really can't accept it. Mother. I can't accept that my feelings are gone with the wind. She cried out bitterly. Back then, everyone was trying to deceive me, everyone was bad-mouthing Jun Moxie in front of me. Old Duke Jun came to propose marriage, but was rejected by father. Although I wasn't willing at that time, but if I had known the truth earlier, I would have agreed to it. I would have tried to atone for father's sins. I would have repaid for the sins we've committed. Even if he doesn't accept it, I was once his wife after all, and I also had him. Do you know, ever since I found out about the suffering he had gone through, my heart ached. Every time after the investigation, I want to hug him in my arms and comfort him. As a man, it's not easy for him. No matter how strong a man is, there will always be a moment of weakness. I really want to be the one to accompany him at that moment. Chapter 641. Sigh. The Empress sighed deeply and looked at her daughter. Suddenly, a heartfelt sense of powerlessness welled up in her heart. Do we have the same fate as mother and daughter? Or is Meng, or even more unfortunate than me? I still have a Han's attachment. At least I have loved him, but Meng, has unrequited love from beginning to end. It's so pitiful, Murong Xiao Xiao quietly pondered for a long time. She slowly stood up and looked at her daughter lovingly. She paced back and forth a few times. Suddenly, an indescribable fierceness and madness burst out in her eyes. From the side, the gentle and beautiful face of the Empress, the dignified face of the Empress, seemed a bit ferocious at this moment. My life has long been ruined, completely ruined in the hands of that man. Do I have to watch my own daughter's life also be ruined in his hands? She is my only daughter, and also the source of all my blood and sweat. She thought silently, and the look in her eyes became more and more tragic and crazy. I have to work hard for my daughter. Even if I can't succeed, at least I have done my best as a mother. She was so excited that she gasped violently. This gasp sounded as if she was tearing her throat. It was so hysterical. Mother? Princess Raimu looked up worriedly. It's okay. It's really okay. The Empress lowered her head, as if she didn't dare to let her daughter see the fire in her eyes. She just slowly waved her hand and said, "Don't think about it anymore. It's getting late. Go back and rest." The Empress' heart seemed to shatter as she watched her daughter obediently and sadly disappear from her line of sight. Gritting her teeth, her cheeks puffed up as she finally made up her mind. She stood up and refused to be served by the palace maids. She put on a coat and suddenly said coldly, "Call for a sedan chair, I want to leave the imperial palace and go to the Jun family." "Your Majesty, it's already late at night." The maid looked at her in fear. "Didn't you hear what I said?" The Empress glared and said loudly. This was the first time she had spoken in such a harsh tone since she entered the palace. "Yes, this servant will go." The palace maid was so scared that she almost collapsed to the ground and hurried out. The Empress laughed self-mockingly. Hearing the footsteps outside, she suddenly tightened her collar and walked out without hesitation. When she walked out of the palace gate, a black shadow flashed out from the darkness like a phantom and followed her step by step like a shadow. "Ah Jiu, where are the new guards on duty now?" Before the Empress got on the sedan chair, she asked in an extremely indifferent tone. "I heard he wasn't on duty." They were all in the Imperial Guard camp and formed their own brigade. That group of people were all very arrogant, and their skills were also very good. Usually, I don't see them do anything, but recently, they've been quite well behaved. The shadow-like Ajio pondered for a moment before replying cautiously. You've only started behaving since half a month ago, right?" The Empress asked indifferently with a hint of mockery in her eyes. Half a month ago was the time when Jun Moxie had returned to Tianxiang City. "Yes, and they've been in the 3 battalions since then." "They haven't come out, no one has come out," Ajio replied carefully. He didn't dare to look at the Empress' face because he could hear the gloominess and bloodthirst in the Empress' tone. "Ah, the Blood Sword Hall was behind the Yi family's massacre, wasn't it?" The Empress lowered her voice and asked. "Yes, but almost everyone in the capital knew about it at the time." "So, it wasn't a secret at all," Ajio replied in astonishment. Only then did he realize that the Empress had already boarded the carriage. The wind was cold, and it was already the latter half of the night. There were no stars or moon as the carriage rolled out of the palace gate. "What did you say? The Empress went to the Jun family at a time like this?" The Emperor frowned. His face was frighteningly gloomy. He had drunk a lot of wine, and his head was drooping weakly. But, he suddenly raised his head as soon as he heard these words. His eyes shot out a hawk-like gaze. Fierce and cruel. "Yes." The guard knelt on the ground, and didn't dare to raise his head. "I know. You can go now." The Emperor leaned back, and closed his eyes tiredly. His fingers gently rubbed the space between his eyebrows. The ruthless look on his face became more intense, and his breathing became more rapid. He murmured, "She went to the June family at a time like this? Why? Why? Why?" The more he thought about it, the more panic flashed across his face. Then, a hysterical look emerged on his face. He roared in a low voice, "Why can't I go at a time like this? Why are you going now? Are you trying to sell me out? Murong Xiao Xiao, I've tolerated you for a long time. For a long time." He roared loudly. The alcohol had eroded his eyes into a blood-red color, and he looked ferocious. Then, he suddenly said decisively, "Someone. Ask Mr. Wen to come here. Brother Wen, I want to ask you to do something for me. Please." The elegant Mr. Wen had a smile on his face. He had just arrived, and the emperor had already made a request. "How could I dare? What's the matter?" "Oh, this old man has come here today to inform His Majesty of something." Mr. Wen smiled as he looked at the emperor. "Mr. Wen also has a matter. Please speak first, Mr. Wen." His Majesty had a smile on his face. But, the muscles on his dignified face were faintly twitching. His 3 strands of beard were also trembling slightly. His eyebrows were brimming with murderous intentions. "This old man will leave the Tianxiang Imperial Palace tomorrow, and return to the Great Golden City. I won't be the only one returning this time. The entire Xian continent's people who have been stationed in the various imperial palaces will be withdrawn starting tomorrow. We won't meddle in worldly affairs from now on," Mr. Wen said with a smile. "This old man will leave the Tianxiang Imperial Palace tomorrow, and return to the Great Golden City. I won't be the only one returning this time. All the people who have been stationed in the Xian continent's imperial palaces will be withdrawn starting tomorrow. We won't meddle in worldly affairs from now on. We won't meddle in any form or by any means," Mr. Wen said with a smile. "What? How?" His Majesty suddenly stood up. He looked at the man in front of him in disbelief. He couldn't believe his own ears. "I'm sorry, but it's true," Mr. Wen said in a serious tone. His indifferent words had thoroughly shattered the emperor's last shred of hope. Why has such a decision been made so suddenly? I asked Mr. Wen to explain clearly. His Majesty slowly sat back down. His face exposed a trace of bitterness as he asked in a low voice. "I don't know about this. This decision has been made by the highest level of the Golden City. I'm powerless to do anything about it." Mr. Wen looked at the man in front of him. "Your Majesty, you, take care of yourself." He, take care of yourself. What do I need to take care of myself?" His Majesty chuckled. His face was full of loneliness. He slowly shook his head and said in a low voice, "I've been governing the country cautiously and conscientiously. I've been handling official affairs day and night. I'm afraid that I've been handling them more than I had in the past few years. I don't have much time left. So, I'll naturally do my best to handle them well. I'll go and have a drink with Jun Wuhui, right? Wrong? This is ridiculous. Ha ha ha." He was laughing, but his eyes didn't have the slightest hint of a smile. Instead, they were filled with sorrow. "The Crown Prince?" Mr. Wen frowned. "Mr. Wen, it's time to leave. So, let's decide on the successor today. The first prince will be the Crown Prince." His Majesty sighed deeply. A look of powerlessness flashed in his eyes. "He's the only one among the 3 princes. The other 2 are unworthy. Your Majesty, are you worried that Jun Moxie will take revenge?" Mr. Wen asked. "Mr. Wen, do you think that Jun Moxie won't take revenge? Or, will he never find out the truth?" His Majesty asked back. "Paper can't wrap up fire. So what if he can't find any evidence? Does he still need any evidence?" Mr. Wen smiled and said in a heavy tone. Brother Wen, I believe that after you leave this time, the two of us will never have the chance to meet again in this lifetime. His Majesty's words were extremely sorrowful. He turned his head and looked at the dark night outside. Then, he slowly said, You and I have been living together for so many years. We may not be brothers, but we are like brothers. How can Brother Wen bear to leave? Mr. Wen became silent for a long time. Then, he sighed and said, Actually, I don't want to leave. You haven't treated me as an emperor in these years. I've been indebted to you. But, I don't know how to repay you. Brother Wen, I want you to do something for me. His Majesty suddenly raised his head. His eyes were filled with madness. His murderous intention flickered in them. You'll leave tomorrow. Just take it as a parting gift to me before you leave. Please. Please speak, Your Majesty. I've been living in the Imperial Palace for so many years. And, I've been feeling very restless. I'm about to leave. So, I'll feel a little relieved if I can do something for Your Majesty. Mr. Wen was silent for a moment. Then, he resolutely replied. The Empress left the palace a moment ago. She went to the Jun family. His Majesty's voice was hoarse. It was mixed with deep pain and helplessness. She has been in a cold war with me all this time. She looked at me as if she was looking at an irreconcilable enemy. I've put up with her for 18 years. And, she's going to the Jun family at this time. And, she's going to the Jun family at this time. The Emperor of Tianxiang, Yang Huayu's voice sounded like that of a wounded beast. He was growling in a low voice. His face had become extremely distorted. He had become extremely ferocious. His hands were tightly clenched into fists. 18 years. I've put up with her. I've loved her crazily. I've been infatuated with her. But, I've never been able to get even the slightest bit of her sincerity. I've been guarding this shell of mine. But, I've never been able to get anything more. From the beginning to the end, I, the ruler of a nation, can't even compare to that traitorous bastard Yi Han. His Majesty made threatening gestures as he roared. He suddenly grabbed the wine cup. But, it was already empty. So, he threw it aside in annoyance. Then, he picked up the wine pot and gulped it down. Chapter 642. Bang! The jug of wine fell on the table, and issued a crisp sound, and now, she has left me for the Jun family. The Jun family, what kind of place is that? Everyone there wants me dead. They all want me dead. And she has gone there on the eve of the New Year's Eve. The blue veins on his forehead bulged and throbbed. He took a few deep breaths, and finally burst out, Moreover, Yi Han is waiting for her there. He's waiting for her in agony. Mr. Wen remained silent. He couldn't meddle in the secret affairs of the imperial family. In fact, he didn't want to meddle in them. The only thing he could do was to listen. Right now, His Majesty lacked someone to listen to him. Therefore, he played the role of the emperor faithfully. My life is coming to an end, and it could be extinguished at any time. That brat Jun Moxie will never let me off. The emperor was panting heavily as a look of madness flashed in his eyes. He was pacing back and forth in the room. He didn't have the grace and dignity of the past. In fact, he looked like a lion that had been locked in a cage, impatient and furious. Kill her. He suddenly stopped, stood still, and spat out these words from between his teeth. His eyes were bloodshot. Mr. Wen was horrified. He raised his head, and looked at the Tianxiang Empire's emperor in disbelief. This man had obviously been tortured to the point of collapse. Kill her. The emperor repeated. But, his words were even clearer this time. His eyes flashed with a cold, cruel light. In fact, it seemed as if he had personally destroyed the thing he loved the most. He fixed his eyes on Mr. Wen, and suddenly took 2 steps forward. Then, he grasped Mr. Wen's shoulders tightly, and spoke in a desperate voice, "Brother Wen, please help me kill this slut." Mr. Wen was shocked speechless. The emperor had asked him to do one last thing before he left. And, that one thing was to kill his empress. He had killed a woman whom he had loved to death just a moment ago. In fact, he had fallen madly in love with her. What a preposterous thing this was. Why? Mr. Wen's voice sounded dry and hollow. Why? Ha ha ha. His Majesty looked up to the sky and laughed maniacally. He said loudly, "Since ancient times, the winner has always been king and the loser has always been in the wrong. If the Jun family didn't rise, then the Jun family would have naturally died out in Tianxiang. And, the wealth left behind by the Jun family would have naturally belonged to the nation. When that time comes, I will no longer have to worry about someone trying to usurp the throne, nor will I have to worry about my reputation as a god of war. I will even have the strength to sweep through the world. With my great talent and bold vision, it is only a matter of time before I destroy Yutang and devour Xintian. But the heavens are making fools of me. The Jun family has produced Jun Moxie, and all my efforts have been wasted. Now that things have come to this, there's no point in saying anything more. I participated in the murder of Jun Moxie that day. It's understandable that Jun Moxie came to kill me to avenge his father. I don't blame him. No. Don't blame him. I hate him. Motherfucker, who is he? If Jun Wuhui died, then so be it. I am the emperor of Tianxiang. What right does he have to avenge me? Yang Huaiyu was drunk, and his words were incoherent. But, he still said fiercely, "I am the emperor, and he is the subject." The emperor and the subject are like father and son. If the emperor wants the subject to die, the subject has no choice but to die. This is the norm. What right does the Jun family have to avenge me? Even if I kill him with my own hands, it's still the Jun family's glory. Revenge? Bastard! How can they take revenge on their own emperor? The Jun family is simply a family of bastards. He took a few deep breaths. Treacherous son of a B***tch. But, the current Jun family is too strong. I believe that even Sir can't compete with them. So, I don't ask Sir to target the Jun family. But, Murong Xiao Xiao must die. She is my woman. My empress. Why should she meet her lover on New Year's Eve? She might even reveal my secret. She betrayed me to Jun Moxie. She has no choice but to die. How can she not die? He roared at the sky with his hands wide open. But, this is only your guess. It's not the truth. Wouldn't it be a joke if you killed your own empress just because of your suspicions? Mr. Wen frowned. It's not a guess. That's for sure. I'm sure. His Majesty's face was red. His eyes were ferocious as he panted, "Besides, she can't live even if it's just a guess." He paused for a while, and then suddenly roared, "She is my most beloved woman. Just based on this, she deserves to die." He smiled maliciously, "Why should I keep my woman alive if I'm going to die at any moment? Leave her and her old lover to live happily ever after. Ha 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 ha. She's my woman for one day. She'll be my woman for the rest of her life. I'll take my woman with me even if she dies. No. I'll make her wait for me in the underworld. I won't be at ease. I won't be at ease even if she dies one day later than me. I'll dominate her forever even if I can't win her heart. I'm the emperor. The emperor of Tianxiang. How can I endure such humiliation?" He suddenly raised his leg, and kicked the carved table in front of him. It crashed into the ceiling of the palace, and broke into pieces with a loud sound. "So, she must die. She must die before me." Mr. Wen sighed sadly. His Majesty's jealousy and hatred had clearly gotten to his head. You had countless opportunities to kill her in this matter. So, why did you make me do it? Mr. Wen frowned in a helpless manner. I can't bear to do it. I can't bear to do it. How can I bear to do it? The Emperor roared furiously. It seemed as if he was very dissatisfied with his own weakness. She has never loved me. But, she's the only woman I've ever truly loved in my life. I wouldn't have thought of killing her if she hadn't gone to the Jun family today. Because, no one would have been able to keep me in a cold war if I had killed her. I would have been very lonely. Very uncomfortable. He suddenly rushed over, and grabbed Mr. Wen's hand. Brother Wen, help me. Help me this time. Kill her for me. He eagerly looked into Mr. Wen's eyes. You'll be returning to the Great Golden City tomorrow. So, killing such a person will be as easy as blowing off dust for you. Then, you'll be able to escape to a faraway place after you've killed her. The Jun family won't be able to shake the Great Golden City even if they wish to pursue this matter, right? Mr. Wen looked up to the sky and sighed. The expression on his face fluctuated. It was full of contradictions and entanglements. Brother Wen, please help me this time. Tears flowed out of the Emperor's eyes. But, they were flashing with a crazed color. I can't allow my woman to be held in the arms of another man. And, I can't bear to see that scumbag Yi Guhan pressing her between his legs. Please help me, help us husband and wife. This is my last wish. And, it's also the only request I'll make of you since we've known each other for a lifetime. All right. Mr. Wen thought for a long time. Then, he finally agreed with great difficulty. It was obvious that this was a very painful decision for him. I'll go. But, I'll leave after I kill her. And, I won't come back. Thank you, Brother Wen. The Emperor bowed deeply and said, she has just left the Imperial Palace. So, she shouldn't have gone far yet. So, she shouldn't have reached the Jun family yet. Brother Wen, you should be able to make it in time. I'm counting on you. Now. Mr. Wen's eyes narrowed. Now. Now. The Emperor nodded deeply. Good. Mr. Wen's thin face revealed a trace of anger. His calm and indifferent face twitched a little as he slowly said, I, Wen Sangyu, have lived an upright life. And, I've never done anything wrong to anyone. But, I'm about to leave this world forever. And, the last thing I'm going to do is to kill a woman who has no enmity with me. In a dark corner outside the palace, a slender and graceful figure was trembling all over. Her eyes were filled with tears as she quietly retreated. She slowly moved out of the palace. Then, her body suddenly trembled as she tried to suppress her sobs. She frantically ran out of the palace. That person was none other than Princess Raimu. She had come out from her mother's place. But, she remembered that she hadn't paid her respects to her father on New Year's Eve. So, she forced herself to come even though she didn't want to. Because, she wanted to ask her father a question. I want to ask him if he's willing to bow down to the Jun family. Is he willing to repent to Jun Wuhui? In this young girl's dreams, as long as my proud father is willing to bow down to me, will this hatred be alleviated? Then, but as soon as he arrived here, he heard his father's loud roar. Finally, his curiosity was aroused. He quietly waved his hand to summon the guard over, and then asked him to leave. He stood in the position of the guard. Originally, he wanted to hear why his father was unhappy, but he didn't expect to hear such a thing. This was like a bolt from the blue for her. The imperial father that he had respected the most since he was young was actually going to kill his beloved imperial mother. This cruel reality almost made Princess Raimu faint on the spot. But, she didn't dare to faint. In fact, she was afraid that she wouldn't be able to hold on. Because, her mother was in danger. She had always thought that her father was dignified and benevolent. He doted on her. He was a good emperor and a good father. But, she had seen her 3 brothers fight for the throne. And, all of this was planned by her father. So, her view of him changed a little. Then, she found out about the death of Tianxiang's white commander, Jun Wuhui. And, her father had played an extremely dishonorable role in it. And, a knot had formed in her heart. But, Princess Raimu's heart had finally turned to ashes today. All of her hopes and fantasies had been destroyed. So, my father is such a person after all. He's extremely selfish, cruel, cold, paranoid, and a complete pervert. He killed my mother. And, he hired someone to kill her. Such an unimaginable thing happened right in front of my eyes. A husband wants to kill his wife because of jealousy and suspicion. His most beloved woman. An emperor wants to kill the empress because he suspects that his woman will be enjoyed by someone else after his death. This is the most ridiculous joke in the world. Princess Ling Meng ran for quite a distance before crying out loud. She ran and cried until she reached the imperial stables. She tore off the reins of the horse and mounted it. She clamped her thighs together and whipped the horse's buttocks. She shouted at the top of her lungs, "Jia!" The horse neighed. Its front hooves left the ground. Then, it galloped forward like an arrow, piercing through the night sky of the imperial palace. "Who is it?" The guards at the palace gate shouted. "It's me. Open the gate." Princess Raimu's eyes were filled with tears. "Yes. So, it's your highness." The guards hurriedly bowed and opened the palace gate. Princess Ling Meng exerted force on her leg, and the healthy horse let out a long neigh as it leapt forward like a cloud. It passed through several palace gates, and the sound of its hooves was like a sudden clap of thunder. In an instant, it had disappeared into the distance, leaving behind countless snowflakes. At the same time, a slender figure silently rose into the air from within the imperial palace. It flew over 70 to 80 feet in the air, and suddenly, like a huge flag being swept up by a gale, it unfolded in the air and disappeared without a trace with a whoosh. The emperor stood in front of the window. There was a proud and cruel smile on his face. "I left in a hurry last night, so I made a few mistakes. When I copied the chapter, I didn't know what happened. I copied it twice and clicked on the edit button, but it still went back. I repeated more than 90 words. The second mistake was that I wrote the wrong words in the chapter. Already updated, became, first updated. I was speechless. I just finished writing the chapter last night and was about to go to bed. Today, I went to cook for my uncle. Then, I got a call when I was uploading the chapter. My aunt couldn't take the blow and collapsed. Acute myocardial infarction. I finished the chapter in a few minutes and went home in a hurry. Luckily, she was saved in time. Now, she was out of danger. Sigh. I broke out in a cold sweat. I felt cold all over when I was walking on the road. I had a bad feeling. Let me explain briefly. There are 2 updates today. To make up for yesterday's repeated mistakes, I will give you 500 words for the first update. I hope my brothers and sisters can forgive me. All my brothers and sisters know that I usually give at least 100 words for free, or 300 or 200 words for each chapter. It's not for anything else. It's not that I don't like writing new chapters to earn money. I like money, really. But, I hope that I can use these words to make up for the punctuation in the main text. This reason might be funny or stupid, but I've been doing this for 2 years. Maybe I don't give much, but please believe that I've tried my best. I will try my best to make up for the punctuation in each chapter with free words. Chapter 643. Your Majesty, the princess's face was full of tears just now. She rushed out on her horse and was in a bad mood. We did not dare to stop her. The guard at the door came to report. Raimu? The emperor was startled. He suddenly sneered and said, both mother and daughter are going to abandon me to meet their lover? Ha, forget it, don't worry about her. bring me wine. Today, I want to celebrate. Yes. The cold wind whistled through the air, and the dust-like snowflakes were blown up into the air, fluttering in the air. This was the most prosperous street of the Tianxiang city, but at this moment, it seemed somewhat eerie. Under the protection of 100 guards, a small yellow sedan chair, decorated with tassels and ribbons, moved forward at a steady pace. Murong Xiu's beautiful face flashed with hesitation and struggle. Do I really have to do this? The next moment, a lonely and desolate man seemed to appear in front of her, but his eyes that had been filled with despair for a long time were still affectionate and passionate. Little Han. A trace of heartfelt tenderness appeared on Murong Xiu's face. Although she had never shown such an expression when she saw Yi Guhan, every time she heard his name in the dead of night, she would feel bitter in her heart. It was also because of this bitterness that she felt that she was still a person, and a woman at that. This deep affection had tortured the three of them for their entire lives. It became a nightmare and an eternal scar in the heart of Tianxiang Empire's Yang Huayu. It had also become an everlasting memory in the hearts of Murong Xiu and Yi Guhan. In this quiet night, Murong Xiu found herself strangely recalling too many things from the past. The deep feelings of the past, the solemn vows of eternal love, all of them were still vivid in her mind. It was as if on this short road, she was replaying everything in her life, no matter how big or small. Little Han, it's been hard on you. Murong Xiu's face was full of tears. At this moment, she suddenly remembered a poem that Yi Guhan had left for her before he fled to the ends of the world. She could not help but smile miserably. She took out a plain white handkerchief from her bosom. On it, there were a few lines of small blood-red words embroidered in a flamboyant manner. I don't regret this life's deep affection, I'm willing to wander alone, I hate that lovers are only in dreams, I'd rather betray the heavens than you. After Yi Guhan left, Murong Xiu embroidered this handkerchief and kept it close to her body. However, no one knew that this bright red handwriting was Murong Xiu's own blood. She used her own blood to soak the white thread red. Then, she threaded the needle and, stitch by stitch, embroidered the last poem given to her by the person she loved the most on her handkerchief. It had survived until today. Just a few days ago, there were 2 more lines of words, the same bright red, if the fate in the next life has not ended, I would rather betray the heavens than betray you. These were the last 2 lines of the poem that Yi Guhan had recently revised. After Murong Xiu finished embroidering these 2 lines, she embroidered another word below, looking forward to it. Little Han, not only are you looking forward to it, I'm also looking forward to it. If the fate in the next life has not ended, I would rather betray the heavens than betray you. If there is a next life, I will only belong to you. I will smile for you, cry for you, shed tears for you, rejoice for you, bear children for you, and grow old with you, even if I'm poor, even if I'm lowly. As long as you and I can be together, we'll not regret it. Little Han, the world is singing praises for Jun Wuhui and Dongfang Wenxian. They are all feeling sorry for them and sympathizing with them. But who knows how much I envy them? Although they are separated by life and death, they have been husband and wife for more than 10 years after all. With such a relationship, he once had her, and she once had him. They are so happy. But we have never had each other, little Han, the man I love the most, do you know, every time I see you, how sour my heart is, how painful my heart is. In the next life, Your Highness, the June residence is in front. The guard at the front of the carriage turned around and reported respectfully. When he spoke, Murong Xiu had just finished recalling the ups and downs of her life. She was drifting in her thoughts as if she was in a fog. This sentence woke Murong Xiu up from her dream. She lifted the curtain and looked outside. Her eyes were still misty. So fast. So fast. The guards were speechless. The road was snowy and slippery at night. We were so careful all the way, so how could we be fast? It was clearly slow. A gust of wind blew the snowflakes onto Murong Xiu's face as she lifted the curtain. Suddenly, she shivered and had an ominous premonition. Was there no way ahead? Or has my road come to an end? At this moment, a hurricane suddenly rolled up, right above her, and rushed towards the carriage with the force of a thunderbolt. There was a flash of light, and there was a sword in the hurricane. "Be careful, Her Majesty!" The guard cried out in horror. In the distance, the thunderous sound of horse hooves rolled over like a storm. To gallop on a horse in the middle of the night, when the ground was frozen like a mirror, was either a madman or a madman. Once they fell, they would either have their hands or legs broken, or die on the spot. It was simply a waste of one's life. A weak but hysterical cry could be heard in the wind. "Imperial Mother! Be careful! Imperial Mother! Be careful!" The voice was broken by the bone-chilling wind, but one could hear the infinite despair and panic in the voice. In the cold winter night, Princess Raimu galloped madly on her horse. Her hair was disheveled, and the cold wind blew on her face, freezing the tears on her face. Murong Xiu also heard the guard's exclamation, saw the approaching hurricane, and vaguely saw a vague figure in the hurricane. The sound of horse hooves behind also entered her ears. She also heard her daughter's heart-wrenching cry clearly in the cold wind, but she suddenly found that she could not move, as if she had fallen into an ice cave. Under the shroud of such an earth-shattering Xian skill, she had no power to protect herself, and could only wait for death. But on her peaceful face, there was a trace of relief. "Am I going to die?" "Ah!" A wolf-like howl of despair rang out. Zhou's shadow-like figure suddenly appeared. He kicked the palanquin, and the entire palanquin rapidly retreated. At this moment, the advantage of the frozen ground was revealed, and it actually quickly slid out. Meanwhile, his skinny figure lit up with a bright yellow radiance. With a loud roar, he soared into the air and faced the hurricane in midair. The figure in the hurricane. The peak of Earth Xian. The Empress' personal guard turned out to be an expert at the peak of Earth Xian. However, the assassin was none other than Mr. Wen. He was a supreme master. Not to mention an Earth Xian, even a peak of Tian Xian could be killed in seconds. What was a mere peak of Earth Xian? But he still managed to stop him. Blood exploded in midair. Zhou's body had just rushed up when he instantly turned into a sky full of flesh and blood. Drops of blood fell like a rain of blood, falling one after another. But Mr. Wen's figure was faster than the rain of blood. He was like a demon god descending from the heavens, flying down from the sky. He was carrying a small package on his back. Once he killed Murong Xiu, he would immediately fly away and return to the Supreme Golden City. From then on, he would no longer be concerned about the mortal world. Protect the Empress. Dozens of guards stood in front of the palanquin with their swords. At this moment, Murong Xiu flipped over and rolled out of the palanquin, landing on the snow. At the same time, the palanquin was hit by the palm force and split into pieces. Mr. Wen did not say a word. He swung his sword and a ray of sword energy flashed out. The dozens of guards in front of him screamed as they were all cut in half. The sword energy penetrated their bodies and left a deep sword mark on the ground. Snowflakes flew everywhere. The sound of hooves approached. Princess Raimu rushed over desperately. She jumped off the horse and almost fell down. She madly rushed to her mother who was lying on the ground and screamed, "Mother!" Mr. Wen's figure did not stop. He hesitated for a moment and then his right palm flew out with a bang. Even in the air, a black hole in the shape of a palm was formed and hit Murong Xiu's back. "Stop!" Chapter 644. Mother, Mother! Ah! Princess Raimu screamed at the sky crazily. She no longer called her Mother Empress, because she felt that the word Mother Empress was the greatest insult to her mother. That man was not fit to be her mother's man. I don't want the identity he gave me. I don't want it. The cold night was like ice, and her heart was like a cold night. Jun Mo Xia returned to his courtyard as soon as the lively family banquet was over. This period of time was a rare period of peace. But, young Master Jun still needed to find time to practice his medicine and martial arts. And, he couldn't afford to slack off on these matters. It had to be said that Jun Dashao was too popular recently. Just before he left, Dongfang Wenxin's eyes were full of love and reluctance, and Dugu Xiaoyi even pouted and refused to let him go. They almost followed him to the courtyard. Guan Qinghan glanced at him, but because the elders were present, she did not say anything. Even that glance was as indifferent as usual. However, Jun Moxie automatically thought too much. Why did she look at me? Could it be? He couldn't help but feel excited. There was also the little princess Han Yen Menghan. She endured her embarrassment and finished the meal. She actually did not leave and stayed until the end of the banquet. Only then did she angrily glare at Jun Moxie and bared her teeth in a threatening manner. However, one sentence from Jun Moxie made the little girl flee. Am I good looking? Am I good to look at? If it's not enough, you can come and warm the bed tonight. Anyway, it's only a matter of time. Thus, the little girl threw away her armor and ran away like a wisp of smoke, disappearing without a trace. As he walked to the entrance of the courtyard, Jun Moxie was stunned. Why didn't he hear Yiguhan's roar today? Ever since the two little guys, Tian Kan, DK, and Bailey Luo Yun, were brought back by Leng Ao, they had been living here. Other than practicing, they were learning sword skills from Yiguhan. In fact, it was not appropriate to say that they were learning sword skills. The sword skills that Jun Dashao knew were much higher than Yiguhan's. Therefore, the two little ones learned most from Yiguhan in terms of combat experience and adaptability. And most importantly, even though Jun Moxie was knowledgeable, he was not a crippled person. He could not compare to a crippled but not crippled martial artist like Yiguhan. Yiguhan would appear at the side to give them pointers as soon as they started to practice their swordsmanship. Although the swordsmanship of the two had come from Jun Mo Xia, and the level of the swordsmanship itself was far beyond the scope of Yiguhan's field of vision, Yiguhan had traveled all over the world, and his combat experience was exceptionally rich. Usually, the two little mistakes would be pointed out by him immediately, followed by a merciless reprimand. The two of them were determined people to begin with. In the face of their own mistakes, they did not shy away from it and repeatedly practiced it until they were correct, skillful, and perfect. In order to further increase the cultivation of the two little ones, Jun Mo Xia had also used his own pure spiritual energy to imbue them with a series of muscles and bones. So in these few days, with many aspects improving simultaneously, the strength of the two little ones naturally increased by leaps and bounds, improving by leaps and bounds. In addition, after they learned ventriloquism, they were naturally extremely excited after not speaking for a long time. They chattered non-stop. They were not born mute, it was only because their tongues were cut off that they could not speak again. Now that they could speak again, they naturally wanted to talk to their heart's content. But that kind of situation, even Jun Moxie felt a little creeped out. The two little ones sat facing each other, and neither of them spoke, but the sound of their conversation would suddenly appear in the empty space. It was almost as if there was a ghost. In these few days, Yiguhan's newly created one-armed sword skill had also reached the stage of completion. Although Yiguhan did not have enough profound energy and could not use it freely, and its power was inevitably greatly reduced, he clearly knew that the one-armed sword skill that was created from the foundation of Jun Moxie's one-armed sword skill was much more powerful than the original sword skill. Because this set of sword skill contained too much of Yiguhan's own death aura and solemnity. The biggest characteristic of this set of sword skill was its sharpness to the extreme. Moreover, because it was wielded with only one arm, the angle of each sword was unimaginable, and all stabbed from impossible directions. If he were to fight against an expert of the same level, he would definitely have the upper hand, especially against an opponent who was 2 levels higher than him. Even if he were to fight against an expert who was 2 levels higher, he would still be able to cause his opponent to panic. Yi Guhan was very proud of himself for being able to create such a set of sword skill, and he was also very confident. But tonight, the 2 youngsters were still practicing their sword skills, but Yi Guhan did not stand by the side to guide them. His bleak figure stood under the flowering tree, and from time to time, he would frown as he paced back and forth. He was actually very irritated, and seemed to have a very bad temperament. This kind of negative emotion had not appeared in him for a long time, and it was naturally very unusual to see it today. During the time that he stayed in the June residence, from the time he was injured to the time he recovered, from the time he was dispirited due to his lack of Xian Qi, to the time when he saw the sword skill with only one arm, Yi Guhan had always been a man of few words, and his face was always as indifferent as Lenglang's. In addition, his personality was also very eccentric, and it was very rare for him to interact with anyone other than the 2 youngsters. Even when the 3rd master, Jun Wui, took the initiative to talk to him, it was rare for him to say a few words. But at least he no longer had that feeling of despair when he was injured, and there was a little more vitality in him. But today, on this New Year's Eve, this death aura that had already dissipated appeared on his body again. It appeared on Yi Guhan's body. Even Yi Guhan felt somewhat abnormal. In fact, he felt very uncomfortable. What's wrong with me today? Today was the New Year's Eve, and it was the time to relax, but why was he always upset? No matter what he did, he was absent-minded, and even the words he said were wrong. He often stopped talking, and when he wanted to continue, he couldn't remember what he wanted to say at all, but there was one thing that was very clear. Yi Guhan only felt that the shadow of Murong Xiao Xiao in his heart was getting clearer and clearer. Usually, he could forcibly suppress this longing, but tonight, at this special time, it was so uncontrollable. In the haze, it seemed that Murong Xiao Xiao was slowly walking towards him with a smile. Her eyebrows were picturesque, and she was smiling sweetly, just like her innocent and playful appearance 18 years ago. But when Yi Guhan wanted to extend his arm to hug her, she floated away in an instant, leaving only a pair of sad and helpless eyes, as if she was pleading for something. Xiao Xiao. What's wrong with you? Is it you? Is it you? What do you want to say? What do you want to say? Yi Guhan held his head in pain and turned back and forth frantically. There seemed to be a fire burning in his heart, and there was also a knife twisting in it. He seemed to have noticed something, but it didn't seem like there was anything. There seemed to be some hint in the haze, but Yi Guhan felt that he couldn't break through the layer of fog in front of him no matter what. Jun Moxie walked over slowly, and when he saw Yi Guhan's appearance, he couldn't help but be startled. What's wrong with this affectionate person today? At this moment, Yi Guhan finally couldn't stand it anymore. He strode over, and his eyes flashed with madness. Jun Sunshao, can you take me to the palace? Yi Guhan's tone was admittedly sincere, but it was mixed with indescribable extreme irritation. He only knew that he wanted to kill someone at this moment. His heart was inexplicably irritable. In fact, he was extremely irritable. In fact, Yi Guhan felt that he would have bitten and eaten his enemy if he had been in front of him. Go to the palace? For what? Today is New Year's Eve, it's not convenient, right? Jun Moxie frowned, and looked at him in amusement. Has this brother's unrequited love gone berserk? Go to the palace at this time? Do you want to embarrass yourself? With your image, do you want to go to someone else's territory and humiliate yourself? At this moment, Jun Moxie's expression inexplicably tightened, and his complexion became exceptionally heavy. He could clearly feel a hidden and powerful aura rushing over from the direction of the palace, and its target was the Jun family's residence. He could also hear the rapid sound of horse hooves coming from that direction. Did something really happen? Jun Mo Xia didn't have the time to pay attention to Yi Guhan. In the next moment, he had already appeared at the top of the tower. He raised his eyes and looked into the distance. Just as he climbed up the tower, a shrill scream pierced the night sky. The place where the scream was coming from was not far from the Jun family's residence. Jun Moxie's heart shook, and he immediately activated the yin-yang escape, and appeared at the scene of the incident. He just happened to see a whirlwind of shadows attacking a group of people and horses. Jun Moxie recognized the palanquin at a glance. It was the Empress palanquin. The Empress had often visited the Jun family's residence, and although she hadn't visited for a long time, her unique ceremonial guard was still recognizable. As for the blurry shadow, Jun Moxie also recognized it as Mr. Wen. Looking at the direction of the palanquin, it was heading towards the Jun family's residence. And the Emperor's close friend was attacking the palanquin of the current Empress. What did this mean? The answer was obvious. The Empress must have come to harm the Emperor. Otherwise, she wouldn't have taken such drastic measures to kill the Empress. To harm the Emperor. The Empress' destination was the Jun family's residence. That meant it was beneficial to the Jun family. Otherwise, why would the Emperor send a master to kill his Empress? Although it was only a glimpse, Jun Moxie had already understood the situation in an instant, therefore, Jun Moxie acted immediately. However, when he arrived, Mr. Wen had already launched that palm attack. Although Jun Moxie tried his best to stop it, he was too far away, and the best time to stop it had already passed. So, he could only stop most of the Empress' power, and the remaining 20 to 30% of the pure Xian Qi inevitably hit the Empress back. Although it was only 20 to 30% of the Empress' power, it was not easy to deal with the power of a great master. Even a powerhouse like Tian Xian might not be able to resist it. Jun Moxie was furious. He shouted, "Wen Sungyu! You're courting death." His voice was moving, and he dashed towards the Empress like a sharp arrow. Mr. Wen's attack was successful, and he wanted to retreat. Jun Moxie had already arrived here, and there was no room for him to act. Moreover, he had already launched a palm attack, and it had hit the target. His mission was completed. From now on, the sky was high and the sea was wide, and it had nothing to do with him anymore. However, he couldn't leave at this moment. Jun Moxie swooped over like a hawk. He hadn't even arrived, but his powerful aura had already made it hard for him to breathe. Mr. Wen was startled. He brandished his sword with all his strength, and a cold sword light shot out from it. It was aimed at Jun Moxie. Mr. Wen retreated at the same time. He brandished his sword in a frenzy as he retreated. Two large trees on either side of the road were suddenly cut in half. Then, the huge trunks of the trees, which were covered in thick snow, rushed towards Jun Moxie. The large amount of snow was like a natural barrier, blocking everyone's line of sight. As long as he could block Jun Moxie, Mr. Wen was confident that he could escape immediately. Jun Moxie snorted coldly, and activated the power of wood to cover his whole body. Shwa! He passed through the crown of the first tree without any obstruction, and didn't change his direction at all. He passed through the middle of the trunk, and left a big round hole in it. Jun Moxie's body was already on the second tree. The trunk behind him exploded with a bang. The trunk in front of him was like a bamboo pole that had been smashed by a hammer, and cracked into the shape of a trumpet flower. Jun Moxie's body had already passed through the trunk, and appeared in front of Mr. Wen. Mr. Wen was startled. He hadn't expected that Jun Moxie's speed wouldn't be affected at all. However, he was still a supreme master, so he didn't panic even though he was startled. He shouted loudly, and brandished his sword. However, Jun Moxie's figure had already pounced into his bosom by the time the sword light flashed. Then, he felt a sharp pain in his arm, and his sword flew out of his hand with a clang. Sound. It turned into a streamer of light in the air, and didn't know where it had gone. Then, a bang. Sound was heard as his shoulder was chopped by Jun Moxie's palm. At the same time, a thunderous knee struck his lower abdomen, and then his lower abdomen. Suddenly, Mr. Wen felt a deluge of dizziness, and vomited a mouthful of blood. He felt as if his internal organs were on fire, and his Xian Qi was in a mess inside his body. His profound and pure Xian Qi couldn't be used at this moment. In less than a tenth of a blink of an eye, Mr. Wen had gone from having the upper hand against the Empress to having fallen into a boundless hell. Then, Jun Moxie suddenly disappeared in front of him, and the back of his neck tightened. He felt as if someone had grabbed him by the neck, and the wind whistled in his ears. Then, a bang sound was heard, and Mr. Wen's body fell down from the air. Jun Moxie had appeared in front of Princess Raimu, because he had heard Princess Raimu's heart-wrenching and mournful cries. Jun Moxie's fingers touched the Empress' wrist, and a wisp of pure Xian Qi seeped into her body. Both of Princess Ling Meng's knees had been shattered into pieces, and there was a large wound on the back of her head. All of these injuries were not light, and blood had covered her entire body. However, she didn't seem to feel the slightest bit of pain. She knelt on the ice-cold ground with her shattered knees, and only knew how to hug her mother tightly. She looked at Jun Moxie with a pair of pleading eyes, and begged helplessly, "Jun, save my mother." Jun Moxie's heart sank as soon as he touched the Empress' hand. His face turned gloomy. He hadn't expected that the Empress' injuries would be so serious. Her internal organs had been ruptured, and her heart had been shattered. There was nothing he could do to save her. With Jun Moxie's control of the Hongjun Pagoda's limited power, he couldn't do anything about such serious injuries. The art of unlocking heaven's fortune had the ability to seize the fortune of heaven and earth, but it was still difficult to save such injuries. If Jun Moxie hadn't used his own Xian Qi to extend the Empress' last bit of life force, the Empress would have perished. The great master stage experts seemed to be unable to withstand a single blow from Mei Xuan and Jun Moxie. But it was only because their opponents were too terrifying, and they couldn't resist. In reality, they stood at the peak of the Xian continent. Although there were stronger existences above them, in a general sense, they were already the most terrifying existences. Even though Jun Moxie had blocked most of the power of the Great Master's attack, the Empress, who was a weak woman with a cultivation of not even silver Xian, would still not be able to withstand the remaining power of the attack. Jun Moxie sighed. Pure Xian Qi surged into the Empress' meridians without any regard for the consequences. It wrapped around her broken internal organs, completely cutting off the connection with her other organs, and preserved her last breath. Although this method couldn't save her life, it could still support her last breath, so that she wouldn't die on the spot. But this method was only a temporary solution. It couldn't last for long, and could only last for the time it takes to drink a cup of tea. Jun Moxie hadn't considered the Jun family's purpose in doing this. He hadn't considered the Empress' purpose either. He had only thought of Yi Guhan. That infatuated man. Jun Moxie felt that he had the obligation to let them see each other one last time. No wonder Yi Guhan was so anxious, abnormal, and restless just now. It turned out to be because of this. Could it be that this was the so-called psychological connection between lovers? How much love does one have to have for such a psychological connection to appear? 18 years of longing, no regrets. 18 years of separation, this heart has not changed. Jun Moxie felt that he should not be completely indifferent to this infatuation. At this moment, his stubborn evil nature broke out. He didn't care that the woman in front of him was the Empress. He only knew that Murong Xiao and Yi Guhan were a pair of lovers. If he could help, he would help. What identity, etiquette, and morality? Jun Moxie didn't consider it at all. Not at all. After wrapping the Empress' internal organs with Xian Qi, Jun Moxie looked up to the sky and roared, "Yi Guhan." He tried his best to control his voice. When it came out of his mouth, it was quite calm, so as not to shock Murong Xiao. After it spread out, it suddenly exploded in the night sky, rushing towards the Jun family's courtyard. Murong Xiao's dim eyes suddenly brightened after hearing Jun Moxie shout this name. Endless expectation and longing flashed in her eyes. At this moment, Two long roars rose into the sky at the same time. Solitary Eagle and Feng Wanyun flew over at the same time and landed beside June Moxie. Right now, the strength of these two people had already reached the level of a superior supreme. Seeing the situation in front of them, they were shocked. The ominous feeling in Yi Guhan's heart became stronger. At this moment, he also heard June Moxie's roar. Almost without hesitation, Yi Guhan rushed out crazily. His long hair suddenly spread out and danced in the wind. It was full of desolation and desolation. From afar, he saw June Moxie squatting on the ground. He seemed to be holding something in his arms. Yi Guhan's rapid breathing suddenly stopped. He only felt that there was a blockage in his chest. His mind was blank. He had obviously realized something. He no longer had any consciousness and only knew that he was running for his life. When he was in front of him, all of a sudden, everything in the world lost its color. In his eyes, there was only a face and a pair of eyes left. She had forced herself to lift her cheeks. Her eyes were still as gentle as before. But now, she no longer concealed her affection when she saw Yi Guhan. She looked at him tenderly and affectionately. Her eyes were filled with indescribable longing, reluctance, and endless guilt. Little Han. Murong Xiao Xiao tried her best to keep her voice from trembling. She looked at Yi Guhan without blinking. She was afraid that if she blinked, she would never see that familiar yet strange face again. Xiao Xiao. Yi Guhan's body swayed. His face suddenly turned pale. He took half a step forward weakly. Suddenly, his body turned soft and he knelt down heavily. He put his cheek in front of Murong Xiao Xiao and looked at the face that he had missed for 18 years. Xiao Xiao. Who is it? Who hurt you? You. Before he could finish his sentence, he suddenly felt a sweetness in his throat. A mouthful of blood came up, but he swallowed it. He was used to seeing death, so how could he not see that Murong Xiao Xiao was on the verge of death? Little Han. I finally see you again. It's so good. Murong Xiao Xiao looked longingly at Yi Guhan's face and softly said, Little Han. Do you know? I've been thinking of you every day, every moment, all these years. Tears began to gather in her eyes, but she used all her strength to hold them back, for fear that once the tears flowed out, she would no longer be able to see her sweetheart's face. Yi Guhan knelt in a daze and looked at her with warm and gentle eyes. He felt that his heart was empty and said in a daze, Xiao Xiao, it doesn't hurt. I'm here. Murong Xiao Xiao smiled with satisfaction. Her eyes revealed a little girl's expression and she said firmly, Yes, with you, I don't feel pain, and I'm not afraid. This was what Yi Guhan had said to comfort Murong Xiao Xiao 20 years ago when they were in danger together. At that time, Murong Xiao 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 was injured. At that time, Murong Xiao Xiao's reply was exactly the same. Because even though it had been more than 20 years, their relationship had never changed, just like that day, Little Han. Murong Xiao Xiao wanted to raise her hand and touch his face, but she was powerless to do so. Yi Guhan carefully picked up her hand and placed it on his face, feeling the gentle touch. Finally, he could not help but burst into tears, soaking the warm jade hand. Little Han, don't cry. Murong Xiao Xiao tried to move her fingers, wanting to wipe away his tears, but found that more and more tears were flowing. June Moxie, I know I'm going to die, but before I die, I want to tell you one thing. Murong Xiao Xiao still looked at Yi Guhan's face and said softly, Blood Sword Hall is in the 3 camps of the Imperial Guards. June Moxie's body shook and he said in a low voice, Thank you. His hand was still holding Murong Xiao Xiao's right hand at this moment. He was continuously injecting spiritual energy to support her and Yi Guhan's final farewell. Because the moment they separated, Murong Xiao Xiao would leave this world. Little Han. I'm going. You have to take care of Raimu for me. Murong Xiao Xiao revealed a sad smile, full of reluctance. Meng is a good child, but also a pitiful child. Yi Guhan's eyes were blurred with tears, but he did not make a sound. He bit his lips so hard that they bled. A stream of blood slowly flowed down, but he did not feel it. Murong Xiao seemed to understand something. She sighed softly and rolled her eyes with difficulty. June Moxie. Please, for my sake, help me take care of Raimu. I entrust her to you. She clearly saw the complicated look in June Moxie's eyes and begged weakly. Even if you really don't want to marry her, please take care of her. Please. I beg you. Her eyes were filled with hope as she looked at June Mocie's face. Her eyes were filled with endless pleading and longing. This was a mother's last wish for her daughter before she died. It was also her last wish that she couldn't let go of. June Moxie took a deep breath, increased the output of spiritual energy, and nodded silently. He had already felt that Murong Xiao's breath was getting weaker and weaker, and the meridians in her body were almost completely still. Even the divine art of unlocking heaven's fortune was getting more and more difficult to travel through her meridians. Murong Xiao's lips curled into a grateful and relieved smile, and she said sincerely, Thank you. Then, she turned her eyes, and gently looked at Yi Guhan. Her eyes were filled with endless infatuation. She didn't say a word. She still had the strength to speak, but she didn't need to. She didn't want to speak either. She only looked at him. She wanted to firmly remember this face before she died. She wanted to carve it into her soul, and become a brand. She wanted to carry this brand with her for all eternity. Yi Guhan didn't say anything. He let his tears flow down his cheeks as he looked at the beautiful woman in front of him. His gaze was firm and full of deep affection. The two of them looked at each other in a fixed manner. The gazes of the two pairs of eyes seemed to entangle each other's souls, never to be separated again. Suddenly, Murong Xiao's face flushed and her spirit was shaken. She suddenly used the last of her strength and murmured, looking forward. If we are not fated to meet in the next life. Suddenly, her body trembled and stopped. At this moment, her face was full of expectation, tenderness, and affection. Her eyes were still exuding endless affection and infatuation, but life had left her. The hand that was stroking Yi Guhan's face finally fell down powerlessly. Yi Guhan's tears flowed, but his expression suddenly became calm. In fact, it was frighteningly calm. His gaze was fixed on the gentle and beautiful face in front of him. Then, he slowly said the last line of the poem. I would rather betray the heavens than betray you. Xiao. He knelt and looked at Murong Xiao, who seemed to be in a deep sleep, and said calmly, June Moxie, there is a sword manual on the table beside my bed. I will leave it to you. Raimu, I will also leave it to you, please. June Moxie wanted to say something, but it was all stuck in his throat and he could not speak for a while. Yi Guhan's complexion was unexpectedly calm as he smiled and said, I have one last request. Please bury the two of us together. On the tombstone, write, Tomb of Yi Guhan and Murong Xiao. She is not the empress, she has never been. Please grant my wish. June Moxie sighed deeply and said, I can promise you. But the person who killed her is here. Don't you want to avenge her with your own hands? And the mastermind who killed her is in the palace. Don't you want to avenge her with your own hands? Raimu is here. Don't you want to take care of her? Can you really rest assured? I trust you. With you taking care of Raimu, I will be at ease. Yi Guhan smiled with expectation and yearning. Looking at the dark night, the cold wind blew his long hair messily. He slowly said, the murderer. I will leave it to you. The road to the underworld is lonely. If I kill him now, Xiao will still be afraid when she sees him in the underworld. So, I will leave first to accompany her. As for Yang Huayu, he is not worthy for me to kill. He smiled slightly and said, Xiao is waiting for me. What is more important than our reunion in the world? Revenge is not worth it. If we miss our reunion in the next life, Xiao Xiao will be disappointed and sad. We have been separated for a lifetime. As he said this, he slowly leaned over and pressed his face against Murong Xiao Xiao's still warm face. He whispered affectionately, "Xiao Xiao, don't hurt, with me, you won't be lonely." His body suddenly trembled violently. Then, he softly fell forward. His remaining hand tightly hugged Murong Xiao Xiao's body. Their cheeks were tightly pressed against each other, and there was no more sound. Yi Guhan used the remaining dark force to break his own heart meridian and his breathing was cut off. The two hugged each other tightly. On their faces, there was the same expression: satisfaction, expectation, yearning, longing. It seemed that they had reunited in the underworld. It seemed that in the next life, they had made a promise. Mother Uncle Yi Ah. Princess Ling Meng let out a heart-tearing and lung-splitting cry. She suddenly opened her cherry lips and a mouthful of bright red blood spurted out from the corner of her mouth. Her eyes closed and she fell unconscious. The pain in his body had reached its limit. His mother, who had doted on him the most, had passed away, and Uncle Yi, whom he had relied on the most, had also followed him to the ground a moment later. Two of her closest people had passed away one after another. Princess Raimu, who had been traumatized, could not bear such a series of violent blows. She finally fainted. 2 hours ago, he was still huddled together with his mother under the same lamp, talking about his own worries. Only 2 hours had passed, yet they were already separated forever. How could a delicate woman like her endure such a cruel fact? Jun Moxie sadly lowered his head. Since he saved Yi Guhan, he had been depressed. After knowing Yi Guhan for so long, he had never seen Yi Guhan smile. Today was the only time he smiled, but it was for the illusory afterlife. Looking at Yi Guhan and Murong Xiao Xiao snuggling up to each other, Jun Moxie's heart was suddenly filled with emotions. From his mother Dongfang Wenxin and his father's love, to witnessing Yi Guhan and Murong Xiao Xiao's undying love, he suddenly had a deep realization: what exactly is love? Suddenly, a song came to his mind, faintly echoing, perhaps, it was a marriage in his previous life. Perhaps, it was fate in the next life. The fault lies in our meeting in this life. It would only add to the fruitless grudge. When the affairs of the world pass away, when the sea turns into mulberry fields, once again, I will repay this love. If he were to repay this love, perhaps it was a marriage in his previous life. Perhaps it was fate in the next life. The fault lies in our entanglement in this life. Giving birth to more suffering without an end. When the affairs of the world pass away, when the sea turns into mulberry fields, once again, I will repay this love. Then, I will repay this love. The poignant song and the helpless emotion seemed to flow quietly between heaven and earth. Chapter 645. Jun Moxie sighed softly, picked up the bodies of Yi Guhan and Murong Xiao Xiao, and gently put them aside. His movements were so careful and cautious, as if he was afraid to disturb the reunion of the two people in the underworld. After settling the bodies of the two people, he turned back to check on Princess Raimu's injuries. He was surprised to find that Princess Raimu's injuries were also so serious. The double blow of losing her loved ones and the pain of her illness caused the delicate girl to faint. Both of her knees were broken, which showed how much strength she had used to kneel down one after another without any regard for her life. In addition to the huge impact that came afterwards, his knees, which were already heavily injured, suffered another heavy injury. The skin on his knees was lacerated, and his bones were exposed. Even his veins were bulging, suffused with a terrifying blood-red and purplish-green color. There was another big bloody hole on his head, and the blood that flowed out had already congealed at this moment, and was frozen together with the ground. However, the center of the wound was still continuously foaming with blood. This kind of injury was so serious. From a normal point of view, it was an incurable disease. Even if it could be cured, it would be a disability. Fortunately, Jun Moxie was here. Fortunately, Jun Moxie's power had improved greatly recently. Otherwise, he would really be helpless, and it would be difficult to fulfill his wish. Jun Moxie did not dare to be negligent. He reached out with his left hand and grabbed Princess Raimu's small hand. An extremely pure spiritual power poured into her body, slowly restoring her physical strength. At this moment, consolidating her corporeity was the key. Once Raimu lost a lot of blood, her life would be in danger. At that time, if he wanted to treat her again, it would take a lot of effort. His right hand was also idle. With a sweep in the air, Princess Raimu's long hair, which was stuck to the ground by blood, was all cut off. Then, he carried her by the waist. Jun Wui had also arrived at the scene at this time. In fact, Third Master had already been there for a while. He watched as Yi Guhan, his childhood playmate, committed suicide for love in front of his eyes, but he didn't say a word to stop him. 20 years ago, Jun Wui was one of the few people who witnessed Yi Guhan and Murong Xiu falling in love. He witnessed their vows of undying love and their deep love. He also witnessed their separation, their helplessness, and their pain. Finally, he witnessed the two dying together for their love and reuniting after death. Jun Wui had expected his good friend to seek death, but he did not say anything because he knew that it was meaningless. Now that Murong Xiu was dead, Yi Guhan had lost his life. How could he continue living? Or it could be said that Yi Guhan's heart had already died 18 years ago. However, Murong Xiu was still alive. Yi Guhan didn't want Murong Xiu to be lonely, so he insisted on living and accompanying her. Now that Murong Xiu was dead, Yi Guhan finally had nothing to worry about. Death was his release. Real release. Only death could allow this affection of theirs to continue, and it would continue to exist between the heavens and the earth for eternity. In Yi Guhan's life, except for the little sweetness he experienced in his youth, he had never enjoyed any joy. Such a heavy and oppressive life, now that his lover had passed away, he was finally free. So when he saw Yi Guhan commit suicide for love, although Jun Wui was sad and bitter, he didn't try to stop him. He even felt a sense of relief for Yi Guhan. This was a kind of relaxation that moved the heavens and the earth and made the people of the world cry at the same time. Yi Guhan, from now on, you're no longer lonely in the cold night, because you have her, you can have her forever. Forever and ever, in heaven and earth. Guards. Jun Wui's voice was choked with sobs. His murderous eyes were filled with tears. Take good care of Brother Yi and Miss Murong's bodies. Order people to make a large coffin of good quality overnight and bury them together. Jun Moxie walked forward indifferently, holding Princess Raimu's body in his arms. He was thinking about how to arrange this poor woman in his arms. It was better for her to be unconscious now, but how would she face such a cruel reality when she woke up? Jun Wui followed him silently and asked in a low voice, "Mo-xia, what do you plan to do next?" Naturally, it will be done in accordance with Yi Guhan's request before he died. Jun Mo-xia replied in a callous manner, "I will give both of them a satisfactory burial place." His eyes emitted a sharp cold light. "I mean, what about the murderer?" Jun Wui's eyes flashed with murderous intent. "Tomorrow, set up a high platform in front of the palace and order the whole city of Tianxiang to gather and watch. Take the rebellious assassin, Wen Sangyu, to the high platform. Tie him up with a fishing net and put him to death by 1,000 cuts. 9 days and 9 nights, a total of 999 cuts. If there is one less hour, or one less cut, I will consider the executioner as his accomplice, and bring disaster to the whole family. Isn't it not too much to sentence him to death by capital punishment for assassinating the empress of a country?" Jun Moxie said calmly, but his tone revealed an inexplicable hatred. The love between Yi Guhan and Murong Xiu touched his indifferent heart. At this moment, he made such a crazy decision. He must fulfill the love between Yi Guhan and Murong Xiu. Jun Mo-xia wanted to use a funeral that would shock the entire world to comfort the souls of the two in heaven. Even if it was shocking, world-shattering, or even long-lasting, he would not hesitate. I don't care about the general trend of the world or the common people. But as long as it is worth it, I will do it. The evil prince only acts according to his heart. He doesn't care about worldly etiquette. Yi Guhan, Murong Xiu Xiu, I will fulfill your love. I will avenge you. I will make up for your regrets. I will fulfill your unfulfilled wishes. I never had a good impression of Yi Guhan, and I barely understood Murong Xiu Xiu. But what moved me was the affection between the two of you. Jun Wui gasped, in front of the palace. Tens of thousands of people watching. Entanglement in fishing nets. Death by 1,000 cuts. Such a crazy decision had left Jun Wui, the blood general, shocked to the point of shock. Yes. I'm already being lenient by not investigating the sect of the assassin. Jun Moxie raised his face. His face was angular and resolute. It's decided. Okay. But what about the mastermind? Jun Wui sighed. He knew it was useless to persuade him. After thinking for a long time, he finally asked this question carefully. Murong Xiu Xiu didn't say who really wanted her dead, but she didn't need to say it. In Tianxiang City, who could order Wen Sangyu around? There was only one answer. There was only one person. Him. He can't die. At least not now, even if he wants to die. Jun Moxie smiled slightly and said viciously, even if we don't count the debt between Yi Guhan and Murong Xiu Xiu, there's still the hatred of our Jun family, the hatred of my father and second uncle, and the blood debt of my 2 brothers. If we let him die like this, it's too easy. Even if it's death by 1,000 cuts, 9,999 cuts, it's still too easy for him. I must let him live a life worse than death. Jun Wui sighed deeply. That night, after settling down Princess Raimu, Jun Moxie did not hesitate at all and immediately mobilized the troops. Jun Moxie, Jun Wui, Jun Zhantian, Solitary Eagle, Feng Wanyun, Hai Chen Feng, Song Shang, Bailey Luo Yun, Ling Ao, the 300 heaven destroyers and soul devourers, and even Guan Qing Han and Dongfang Wen Exan followed them and quietly left the Jun residence. Blood Sword Hall. Jun Wu Hui's death was directly related to the 3 battalions of the Imperial Guards. It could be said that they were the enemies of the Jun family just like the Shao family. How could Dongfang Wen Exan not be there to besiege the Blood Sword Hall? The hatred of killing her husband was absolutely irreconcilable. Dongfang Wen Exan must see the enemies who killed her husband with her own eyes. No matter how bloody and cruel it was, she must see it. She must take revenge for her husband at all costs. This was the insistence of Dongfang Wen Exan. The Jun family must be present for the great hatred of the Jun family. The souls of the heroes were not far away, and they could be comforted in the underworld. The first half of the night was still filled with the joy of the new year, but the second half of the night was the beginning of endless bloodshed, and it was also the first battle of the Jun family to collect the blood debt. Jun Moxie would not allow any fish to escape the net. Therefore, Jun Moxie gathered all the most elite forces of the Jun family. On the long street, the blood fog had yet to disperse, and the 3 battalions of the Imperial Guards had already appeared in Jun Moxie's vision. Looking at the heavily guarded battalions that were close to the palace, Jun Moxie smiled coldly. The next moment, Jun Moxie, Solitary Eagle, Feng Wanyun, Hai Chen Feng, Jun Wui, Bailey Luo Yun, Ling Ao, Song Shang, and the rest all moved out together. Everyone silently dispersed into the night sky, almost without making any sound. The guards outside the 3 battalions were all silently dealt with in an instant. With the full strength of several Superior Supreme, and the weakest being Shen Xian's strength, these ordinary soldiers did not have any room to maneuver at all. Jun Zhantian, on the other hand, was waiting at the same spot with a large group of people. The old man's eyes flashed with the joy of revenge and infinite sadness. After that earth-shattering incident, the old man's mentality had instantly changed sharply. Since the Blood Sword Hall had changed and collectively became the Imperial Guards, then everything was self-evident, and there was no need for any evidence. The Tianxiang Imperial family had no loyalty to the Jun family, so why should I still be loyal? This was a great absurdity. The fact that the Blood Sword Hall had changed into the Imperial Guards was a huge blow to the old man. Dongfang Wen Xian and Guan Qinghan, dressed in white, quietly looked at the dark tent in front of them, their eyes also full of coldness. Jun Moxie's white robe flashed in the dark night, and with a wave of his hand, the 300 members of the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer members were like a group of extremely agile leopards, silently scuttling out in the dark night. First, a few people occupied the original guard positions, and then 3 people formed a team, guarding the various entrances. The rest of the people swarmed in like a swarm of bees. Today's 2 shifts, tomorrow's 2 shifts, the matters at home will be settled. The day after tomorrow, the outbreak will begin. Today was a huge mistake. I woke up in the morning to write, and after typing 1,000 words, the computer suddenly broke down, and the document could not be typed, and could not be copied. Rebooting the machine was the same, so I hurriedly called a taxi, and took the main unit to repair, but when I went to the computer repair shop, everything was normal, so I moved back, but when I got home, it was still the same, so I called the guy who repaired the computer and scolded him, then called a taxi, and when I got there, everything was still normal, so when I came back, it was still the same. I broke down. The guy who repaired the computer said, "Do you want me to go to your house to take a look?" So he came. After fiddling for a long time, he frowned and said, "Did a hacker hack you?" "I don't have a choice, you should find someone else." After he left, I continued to research, and made a few phone calls to get the guys to come quickly. After the phone calls, I suddenly realized, why did the control key on the keyboard sink down and not pop up? So I used my fingernails to pick at it, and it popped up, everything returned to normal in an instant. Pfft. So that's what happened. I spent nearly 100 yuan just to call a taxi. Chapter 646. The solitary falcon neatly dealt with the members of the Blood Sword Hall in one of the tents. He had just come out, and was about to rush into the second tent when he saw Jun Moxie rushing out of the tent with his hands covered in blood. He had left a blood-red rainbow in the dark night. A fierce fight came from a tent not far away. At the same time, a voice roared, "Who are you? Do you know where this place is? How dare you be so presumptuous? Aren't you afraid of bringing disaster to your family?" Then came Jun Wui's cold voice, "What? You don't recognize me, Jun Wui? But I recognize you. Even if you turn into ashes, I won't mistake you for someone else." "Ah. Jun Wui. You. A cry of surprise was heard. Jun Moxie's body made a strange turn in the air and slid in like a fish. He saw Jun Wui fighting with a red-faced man in a nightgown. There were 2 other people who were bareback and helping them. There were 3 other people who were already dead on the ground. Jun Wui's cultivation was already close to the supreme level. This red-faced man only had the cultivation of Tianxian at the peak. Under Jun Wui's fierce offensive, he retreated step by step. Jun Moxie felt something was wrong as soon as he came in. Because Jun Wui, who had always been calm and collected, had a face full of resentment at this moment. He had lost his cool. Otherwise, with Jun Wui's current strength, he could have taken down his opponent long ago. Jun Moxie thought of something. He flew and dropped his hands. With a flick of his index finger, a sword and a saber flew out from the left and right. They were already stuck in the 2 people's necks. With a bang, the 2 people fainted at the same time. Looking at the red-faced man and the resentment on Jun Wui's face, Jun Moxie seemed to understand something. He asked, "Third uncle, this guy was one of the people who entered your army back then, right?" Jun Wui sent out 2 palm strikes and said through gritted teeth, "Not bad. Back then, it was this fellow who held the military order and led the Shao clan into the main camp, causing the 100,000-strong army to be useless. This person was the culprit. I will never forget his face. Jun Moxie smiled coldly and said, since that's the case, don't let him die a quick death. Jun Wui sneered, of course I won't let him die so easily. The red-faced man's face was filled with despair as he roared loudly like a madman. He wholeheartedly fought with his life on the line, hoping that he would be lucky enough to perish together with his opponent. However, with the arrival of Jun Moxie, Jun Wui no longer had to worry about the red-faced man escaping. He could use his own strength. The red-faced man's skills were inferior to his opponent's, and he was instantly restrained. He could not even barely defend himself. Jun Wui sneered cruelly. Suddenly, he gritted his teeth and charged forward. With a bang, the two of them collided. The red-faced man roared and spat out a mouthful of blood. Both his wrists were dislocated at the same time with a crack, and he lost all his combat power. However, Jun Wui wasn't willing to let him off. So, he spun around and kicked him in the chest. Then, he kicked him to the ground. Then, he stepped heavily on his throat. The red-faced man screamed miserably. His legs kicked and he fainted. Jun Mo Xia shouted, and two big men broke through the tent. They held ropes made of beef tendons in their hands, and tied the three men up in a practiced manner. They were like rice dumplings. We need to interrogate them later. Jun Wui snorted and said angrily, there must be a conspiracy. Third uncle, what else do we need to interrogate? Conspiracy? What conspiracy? Jun Mo Xia laughed mischievously. Then, he said in a deep and ruthless voice, what is this place? How did these people come here? Why did the Blood Sword Hall become the Royal Guards? It's already clear. What else do we need to interrogate? Since Grandpa has acquiesced and even participated in our action, it means that he has abandoned his loyalty and agreed with our way of doing things. These people should be directly executed together with Wen Sangyu. Jun Wui's eyes lit up and he said ruthlessly, that's right. At this moment, there were shouts of killing outside, and flames were soaring into the sky. The neighboring military camps blew their horns one after another. They gathered noisily and prepared to come to the rescue. When Jun Moxie and his nephew stepped out of the tent, the battle here was already coming to an end. 100 members of the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer team were waiting with Xian Beast Tendon crossbows in their hands. Once someone escaped, they would immediately become a hedgehog. Solitary Eagle, Feng Wanyun, and the other top experts stayed in front of the tent in the center, watching with their hands behind their back. Hai Chen Feng, Bailey Luo Yun, and the rest were still fighting inside. It was obvious that this was the place where the leaders of the Blood Sword Hall were. The tent was especially large and gorgeous. How's the situation? Jun Moxie walked over and asked. It's basically settled. This is the only place left. Let Hai Chen Feng and the rest train a little. Their progress is undoubtedly fast, but their state of mind may not be able to keep up. Solitary Eagle's eyes sparkled as he watched the fierce battle inside. He said, this kind of frightening but not dangerous opportunity is rare. Jun Moxie nodded his head in agreement. With Solitary Eagle and Feng Wanyun, two superior spirit masters, watching over the formation, it was guaranteed that nothing would go wrong. Under such circumstances, it was undoubtedly a good thing to let these brats train with real swords and spears and gain some combat experience. The people inside aren't weak. Jun Mo Xia chuckled as he coldly watched the fight going on in the room. Suddenly, two small figures caught his attention. In the midst of the intense battle, two small, short, and thin figures nimbly shuttled back and forth. Suddenly, the two of them burst out at the same time, both of their remaining arms holding a dagger that shone brilliantly in all directions. The timing was perfect, a fatal blow, a fatal blow. Hai Chen Feng was using his own sword to force the Sky Xian expert in front of him into a flustered state. However, two thin silhouettes had pounced on him from two different angles. One of them was using their left hand, while the other was using their right hand. Then, they thrust their short swords into the left and right ribs of the Sky Xian expert like a hot knife through butter. Then, they let go of the daggers and somersaulted out of the way. The dying Sky Xian expert roared in despair. He completely ignored Hai Chen Feng's attack, and used the entirety of his Xian strength to attack with his left and right palms in the hope that he would be able to take one of them down with him. However, the two youngsters were very perceptive, and wouldn't be greedy for the moment of success. So, they retreated far away. The Sky Xian expert's mouth foamed with blood. He swayed twice, and finally collapsed. With a swoosh, the two little ones rushed forward at the same time and pulled out the daggers from the expert's body. Holding the daggers in their hands, they nimbly turned around and continued to look for their next target. Although they were just two little kids, their grasp of the situation was so accurate and their attacks were so ruthless that it made one gasp in amazement. Even after killing, the two little ones' faces had an inexplicable look of fanaticism, without the slightest bit of fear. Feng Wanyun sighed. Lengleng looked at the two little bodies and said sincerely, "These two little fellows are natural-born executioners. In time, as long as they can grow up, I believe they will be two unparalleled assassins not inferior to Chu Chihuan. It's not bad that they are already executioners, but it's a pity that they were not born this way." Jun Mo Xia said indifferently. If you knew what they had experienced in the past, you wouldn't be the least bit surprised by their current behavior. After experiencing the inhumane torture in Huanghua Hall, Tian Can and DK no longer had a shred of pity in their hearts. As long as they were determined to be enemies, they should be killed. Orderly footsteps sounded and the loud sound of hooves could be heard from all directions. The reinforcements from the other camps had finally arrived. 3 burly men were like 3 iron towers, blocking the path. Their faces were cold and expressionless as they looked at the troops charging at them, not retreating at all. "Who's in front? Get out of the way. Otherwise, we'll kill without mercy." One of the leaders couldn't help but ask when he saw that the 3 of them were so calm and did not seem to care about his army at all. "The Jun family is here to settle the matter. Unrelated people, please leave. Those who dare to disturb will be killed without mercy." One of the burly men stepped forward and replied with Lengleng. This was already the border of the palace, but in the words of this Heaven Destroyer member, the royal army was actually unrelated people. Killed without mercy. The Jun family? The commander shuddered as he looked at the source of the firelight in bewilderment. Suddenly, a whistling sound cut through the air, and a white silhouette slowly rose from the flames. It stepped onto the top of the flagpole outside the tent, and a tall and slender silhouette stood there, as steady as a mountain, and loudly announced, "Jun Moxie of the Jun family is here to exterminate the rebels. Unrelated people, get out of the way." The last 5 words he shouted were like rolling thunder that resounded through the entire Tianxiang city. That kind of reckless and arrogant attitude was not concealed at all. The troops coming from all directions suddenly stopped. Almost at the same time, all of them reined in their horses. For a moment, the sound of horses neighing could be heard. Then, a steady voice said, "So it's Jun Sunshao here, this old man has been disrespectful. May I ask, what is the 3rd young master doing here?" The one who spoke was the commander of the imperial bodyguards, Murong Hao of the Murong family. Jun Moxie snorted and said in a deep voice, "Do I have to report to you when I'm doing something? If you don't leave, then you'll have to stay as well." Murong Hao's expression changed. He was about to speak, but suddenly, an old man in black clothes appeared in front of his horse like a ghost. He looked at him with eagle-like eyes and spat out a single word from Lengleng's mouth, "Get out." As he spoke, he drew a line with the tip of his foot, and his figure flashed. In an instant, he drew a 3 feet deep trench on the ground. He stood where he was and coldly said, "Anyone who dares to cross this line will die." Murong Hao took a deep breath. This was the edge of the imperial palace, and the ground was paved with the best quality granite. The texture was unique, but this old man in black had casually created such a trench with the tip of his foot. Furthermore, there was absolutely no xian qi emitting from his body. Could it be? He carefully looked at the old man. His black clothes were like iron, his face was thin, and his eyes were like an eagle's. Suddenly, he remembered a legendary figure. According to the rumors, wasn't this king of man in the Jun family? Could it be that this was the king of man, the grassland eagle god, solitary eagle? He could not help but tremble. At this moment, Jun Zhantian's deep voice was heard, "Murong Hao, lead your men and retreat." Murong Hao's body trembled, and he said, "Yes, old marshal." He then waved his hand, "Retreat." The men under his command immediately retreated in unison. Solitary Eagle scoffed, and his face showed that he was not happy. "What a bastard, how dare he look at me so closely. When I went out today, there were two girls reading a novel at the computer repair shop. I saw that they were actually reading the original version, how rare. Then, both of them cursed at the same time, this Feng Ling Tian is too lazy, he only reads 4 chapters a day. This is intolerable. I quickly escaped with my face covered in dirt. Ugh, let me explain. Today, when I saw a friend in the book review section asking me about ventriloquism, he said that it was extremely unreasonable. I felt that I had to answer, I really don't know ventriloquism. I don't even know Jun Moxie's art of unlocking heaven's fortune, let alone body and sword unification. I'm ashamed. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.